All right, let's call this meeting's order at 7:01 p.m. Start with the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Sunshine Law notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment, to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person through the Zoom meeting platform being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this regular council meeting of November 13th, 2023 is available by calling phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it's time for questions or comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting was included in the schedule of meetings, which was adopted by resolution number 2023-13 and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on January 6, 2023. Posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute, with adequate notice having been given. The Borough Clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Paul,
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
La Barbera.
Yes.
Neff.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Administrator Council Brandon is attending by Zoom and Attorney Hubble's here.
Thank you. Moving right along to old business, hearing and adoption of ordinance number 2023-16, amend chapter 30, replace riparian buffer ordinance to be riparian zone. Do I have a motion to open?
Motion to open.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Is there anyone up here that wants to comment on this
Well, we should explain what it is, baby.
before I go to the public though? Is there anyone up here that wants to comment on it? Teresa? You're muted.
No, sir, I'm good. I think it speaks for itself. We're moving over to last meeting.
You want to speak? to-
Yeah, this is an update to basically, it's kind of housekeeping. This brings our ordinance language, or zoning language into compliance with the way the state looks at riparian zones, so it's more consistent. It'll be helpful for our land use boards and our residents.
And one other piece, so when the annual report, last year, and even the year before it came out, the zoning board, identified what I'll call some friction points, because when you have an ordinance locally that conflicts with state guidance, it adds some confusion. So it was really important to ensure complete alignment using the same lexicology, so that there's no confusion.
Anyone in the public that has a comment on ordinance number 2023-16? No? Allison, anyone online?
No, sir.
Do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve 2023-16.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Paul,
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
La Barbera.
Yes.
Neff.
Yes.
Rodriguez. Nodding yes.
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2023-18, authorized acquisition of real property for public purposes, 21 Fairhaven Road. Do I have a motion to open?
Motion to open.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Does anyone up here have any comments on?
A few, being a member of the deliberative body, I'm a little short on information. To my knowledge, and I asked earlier today, we haven't received back any of the assessments. Because I understand they're underway, but we don't have any of Nigerian's findings or any of the assessments that have presumably will be part of our decision-making process. I don't know if there are tanks there. I don't know if there's asbestos in that property. I don't really have any data
This, just so you know, this won't change the actual ordinance itself. All of the due diligence that's involved in both the state's checklist, the county's checklist, and the various professionals that are working on this will still be followed prior to us executing any contract of sale.
To my mind, and Teresa, if you understand something different, please say so. This is the governing body's last opportunity to speak to, deliberate, or undertake any kind of process as it relates to the acquisition of property. If this ordinance is adopted tonight, everything may roll out, but it's not going to come back to the council for consideration.
It will not come back, only so much as that it is authorized for the mayor to execute the agreements, provided everything that is in the checklist and the due diligence is in order.
But theoretically, if, for example, any of the assessments came back with, say, in a phase one environmental, could identify oil tanks or kind of thing that would obviously cost more money to clean up. They're unknown, I guess is what I'm saying.
If there was a phase one environmental that came back, the county would most likely, if it was indicated it was necessary, they would order a phase two. If that's the case, I would come to the governing body to tell them that.
We wouldn't be obligated to purchase it unless it passed the entire checklist with flying colors. Is that what we're saying?
Not only wouldn't we be obligated, Tracy, but both the state and the county wouldn't give us the grant.
So unless we accepted the responsibility for the cleanup.
No, they'd want to be sure that that was taken care of before they put any funds towards the purchase.
So what are the other, this is all new information, so what are the other sort of deal breakers that we cannot foresee at this point?
Teresa, I can chime in here.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So another would be clean title. Right, so there's a title contingency, there's the inspection contingency, there's an environmental contingency. Obviously financing is not relevant at this point, because we do have that grant. So those are three contingencies that would have to be satisfied in order for us to move through. So essentially, in like layman's terms, what we're doing is we're authorizing the ability to go through the attorney review period. And now by adopting this ordinance is we're under contract per se. Okay, and that's what we do. Now all the contingencies are triggered. We have our opportunity to do the due diligence. Obviously, if there is a problem and we are not able to get a grant because of a condition of the property, then that would trigger the financing contingency because we would not be able to get the grant. Whatever the case may be, there's so many different things that could go wrong with the purchase of a property, as you're aware. So this is getting us through the attorney review period, and now we'll be considered, if it's adopted tonight, we'd be under contract.
And then if I follow what you're saying, and I have some experience with it, I understand completely. The only time that it would come before this body again, in terms of the acquisition, would be if there's a problem that is insurmountable, or someone would deem it to be insurmountable.
Yes.
Who's the someone?
Well, that's what, you have an attorney that drafted this ordinance. Sal Alfieri's office drafted it. And so he is the attorney representing the borough in the purchase of this property.
It doesn't speak to contingencies though. In the ordinance, at least what we have in our packet.
Well, this is just authorizing the ability for the mayor to sign, to go under contract.
I guess what I'm just saying, it seems to be a lot of information we don't have yet. And I don't know that, since we haven't gotten it yet, but we're being asked to authorize the acquisition. I would just like to make sure that we get that information.
You'll get it also. Go ahead, Andrew.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I was going to say that this is not dissimilar to when we pass a bond ordinance where it gives the governing body and the public a chance to go through a process that shows your intent to make a major in this case, capital purchase or to buy a piece of property. That process in and of itself is served by the ordinance because we have, we introduce the ordinance, we advertise the ordinance, we adopt the ordinance, and it gives the public a opportunity to weigh in on the actual purchase of the property. The rest of the checklists and the contracts and all of that, that will be done through our professionals' due diligence in cooperation with the state's professionals and attorneys and the county's professionals and attorneys. And ultimately would have the mayor ultimately signing the contract if and when everything is in order.
We can't find out the information regarding any sort of conditions with the property unless we authorize and adopt this ordinance.
I thought those condition assessments are underway now. They are underway now.
Some of them are underway,
Right.
yes.
We
Certainly we could
can't,
get that information back prior to authorizing.
we can't get that information back, because what we're doing is we're operating in good faith, right? That we're going to adopt this ordinance. That's the way that they're operating, the seller. They're saying this is good faith, I'm gonna allow you to conduct these inspections and due diligence while it goes through the governmental process of adopting the ordinance. If we had no desire, if they didn't think that we had any sort of intention of purchasing this property, they wouldn't allow just, all these professionals to come and survey the land and do all their inspections. They would put it out to another, potential purchaser who would then undertake those same inspections. But those conditions and those inspection contingencies aren't realized until you're under contract.
Well, theoretically, we could just wait another meeting and get the information back. When do you think those assessments will be completed?
I really don't have a final date on that, Tracy. I don't know that. I know that Sal's working with the attorneys for the county. And I'm not positive when all of that, the title search, all of what's gone into, the final checklist will be pulled together.
If anything comes back on the report, anything on the checklist that might be missing for, needs updating, it comes here first, right, before.
If anything was relevant, I would certainly bring it to the full governing body. Obviously, we would share it right away with the mayor and our borough attorney. And if it warranted coming back into either executive session or public session, we would certainly put it on the following agenda.
Andrew, is it, I'm gonna make a metaphorical example here, right, to help me understand what you're saying, right? If I'm going to buy a house, I wouldn't have a home inspection until I'm out of attorney review.
Correct.
And then I'm under contract, then I hire the home inspector, they come in, if they find anything, I hire additional people, because I don't wanna put money into it unless I know I'm under contract and serious.
Exactly.
Is it, can we draw on a similar parallel here with 21 Fairhaven Road, that we wouldn't want to invest, I understand the whole good faith thing, right? But theoretically, you wouldn't want to invest a penny until you're under contract, knowing that you and the seller are in agreement that they're going to sell it to you underneath conditions A, B, and C. If radioactive material is uncovered, obviously we're not going to buy it, right? If something significant shows up based on the contingencies, we're not going to buy it, right? Because the contingencies say, hey, we're willing to buy this property under these left and rights. So that's what the contingencies are. And if anything falls outside of that, then it needs to be discussed and reviewed.
Right, because you can always terminate the contract.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I think the difference in this case is it's all just gonna roll out without coming back here unless there's a problem. Meaning there's no other opportunities for us to examine the intention and what we think is the best thing for Fairhaven. This is it.
Well, if there's no other problem, then I think if the vote is an approval tonight, then the governing body has decided to move forward.
Right.
If there is a problem, I think what we're hearing here is Borough Administrator Casagrande is going to bring it back to the governing body for a discussion.
And it's two different intents, right? Mayor, it's intention to acquire versus the intention of what's going to go there. Right? Those are two separate paths.
Wow.
Totally two separate things. I think what she's saying is she's concerned about the acquisition if there's an issue with the property, which I understand what she's saying, but it sounds like there's still a path forward even with that concern.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Public, this is now your time to comment on 21 Fairhaven Road, because the vote will be right after this, so if you have a comment in the public, please come up, state your name, address for the record.
And Sweden 70 Fairhaven Road. The due diligence that's being referenced here tonight is county driven. And grant driven. What are you ready to vote on? What due diligence, what information do you know about my neighborhood? In terms of health, safety and welfare? About proceeding this point, there is nothing about due diligence in this ordinance that's being proposed as it's read. So these contingencies that you're showing, and I'm not really fond of the sound, nothing personal, Teresa, that it's subjective, that it'll come back here for further review if something kicks off in the county's requirements. What are our town's requirements? What are we saying needs our criteria for acquisition of that property before we vote to acquire it? How, what, I'm not being facetious. I would like to know what the 4 individuals who have said that they would like to proceed with this, what do you know that we don't know? We're very concerned that our street can support additional public access at all. So what traffic and safety has been determined that that's valid? What welfare of our street justifies a second park? I'm not saying that it does or it doesn't at this moment. I have personal feelings about that. But what data have you actually looked at? I'm very uncomfortable that this is personal and gut feelings that people are writing on, and there's only the criteria of the county being that it's overly polluted for our budget. I don't even know what our budget is. You haven't really put out that criteria either. There just seems to be a commitment afoot that Josh and Teresa can buy a piece of property without coming back here, even if there's nothing wrong with the property on those criteria. What makes it appropriate for us? What engineering, what professional data are you comfortable? Why are you so comfortable and I'm uncomfortable? What have you, I don't know. You said that this has been kicked around for 2 years. In those 2 years, have you collected professional information that meets the criteria that you set out? That says beyond the scope of the master plan. I totally understand. The master plan, is it everyone's desire to have more access to the water? Sure. Have we set a criteria that says that there's any place in town that criteria actually works? It's a lovely aspiration, but it needs to be measured against something. I just want to know what professional information have you reviewed that you're saying to me as a homeowner on that street, with the amount of children that I have on the street, with issues that are requiring a revisited ordinance for the public park I already have on that street. What makes you so comfortable?
Ms. McCann, what is your concern?
My concern is that the street can't support
Okay, so we're
an
making,
additional park, and that we are proceeding with undefined resources to apply to that park, passive or otherwise.
right. So we're
And
making,
that parking hasn't been addressed,
Right.
This count, it becomes a circular firing squad.
I think, just to interview for just a quick sec, I think based on that we're making the assumption that by purchasing this property, there will be increased foot traffic. We're making that assumption, right? I'm not making that assumption.
You're not.
No, I'm
So
not, because,
you're
because
voting
it's
to
not Victory
acquire
Park.
a
It's a different,
public access. You're voting to acquire a piece of property that's required to have public access based on the funding that
right,
you're accepting, but you don't think that that is going to increase foot traffic.
Well,
I-
we haven't
no,
taken a vote yet, so we don't know
I
how
understand, but-
Councilwoman Hogan's gonna vote. at this
Okay.
point.
But I'm asking, so you're saying you have no.
I'm just saying that we're
professional
operating
information,
under the
you have your feeling.
assumption. You're making assumptions that by
Based
purchasing.
on what is my question?
Karen,
That's what I'm saying, you're making the assumption, that's what I'm saying.
I want to know what your vote is based on.
so you're gonna find out what our vote is, but
Not what the
what
vote
I.
is, what it's based on, John.
So what I would say is we're kind of getting back into the same dialogue as the last meeting, which is fine. But at this point, we're acquiring the park. We haven't designed it yet, which you've pointed out. We have not designed what that park's gonna be, what the use is gonna be, the amount of passive, versus not being active. I'll just use those two terms at the same time. Based on what we end up designing down there, that's probably gonna determine whether there's increased foot traffic, whether there's increased parking, and that's gonna be part of the design process that we're gonna incorporate all the residents of our town
You
to help us.
misunderstand, Josh. I'm not asking for input
Right.
so much when we get to the design phase.
I think I am
That's-
misunderstanding.
That's great too.
Right.
We're asking for input now.
Well, it's hard to give you data on something that we don't know what it's gonna be yet. I've told you that. I said that at the last meeting.
I think that you can provide data.
What type
and
of,
incorporation.
what specific data are you looking for?
I'm looking for health, safety and welfare. I'm looking for if we have an obligation at the top of the street that absorbs an undefined traffic obligation, parking obligation to our district. How in fact does that affect our street, then how the bottom half of the street already supports the dock? How does,
Before we plan and design anything down on the bottom of the street, we're gonna do.
why would we acquire something? Why were we making a commitment to acquire something that we don't have some of this information about? Why would, this seems so much the cart before the horse.
Karen, respectfully, I think we had the same discussion last meeting, and I'm not looking to rehash. I respect your opinion and I understand what you're saying. But I just feel like we're gonna keep going in a circle.
Okay, I would respectfully ask. I would ask that council please delays a vote until what I feel is accountable information for you and for your accountability to us. That timeframe be established. I know that there's concern about running out of the grants. You may find at the end of the analysis, they're not applicable. We should be in a position to walk away from this beyond the idea that there's an oil tank in it. We should be setting up criteria of our own due diligence. And I would like to request that the ordinance be shelved until such a time that can be acquired.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public with a public comment? Anyone for the road?
Dear gosh, I'm at 268 Fairview Road at 23. So I concur with a lot of what Karen said. And I think our overall concern as a community, which we discussed last night, like you said, Josh, is the traffic at the end of the block, the safety at the end of the block. And the fact that you're potentially moving forward to purchase something that will drive traffic, no matter what you do, it's driving traffic down there, it's gonna be an attraction. Whether there is a spray ground, a bench, or a trip.
No spray ground.
I know you guys talked about it.
No spray ground.
Whatever is down there is going to draw more people, just like the dock, there's nothing at the dock. Except an interest in maybe fishing or crabbing. So now you're gonna have the extension of the dock be the park of some sort. Whether it's hopefully passive and not active. And it is going to be a drawdown. The traffic down there is terrible the way it is. This is going to be more of a situation down there with regard to that. And I think with regard to the house at 23 Fairhaven Road, we adjourn the property directly. And we're very concerned just about the safety of our house. Our setback, because it's a side setback, is 4 feet from now where the park is. So at the end of the day, you know, I'm gonna hold all of you accountable for the safety of my daughter and my son in that house. Because now all of a sudden, the public is gonna have access right up to my property. So I would also ask, do not vote on this tonight. Let's gather more information as to what effect any kind of park down there is gonna have, whether it's active or passive. Because there is gonna be an effect to the neighborhood. And the fact that we don't know that going in, and we're gonna purchase this in the hopes of developing something which we don't understand the outcome, I think is a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Is there anyone else in the public?
Yes, hi, my name is Sidney Malaraji at 70 Fairhaven Road. Just to draw on the example that you were bringing up in regards to basically comparing the situation to buying the land and sending your inspector as a family. Someone would go, very similar to the example you were giving. Someone would like to purchase a piece of land. Well, you talk to your family first, you find out if the schools are appropriate for your children. You find out what the taxes are. You find out a variety of things and components before you go and even put in an offer. Because you have to think about all of these things ahead of time. Now, all I'm saying is, this is a very similar situation. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about looking at this first before we go making offers and going into attorney review, as you specified, as an example, right?
We'd be through attorney review after, right?
We'd be done with attorney review? We'd be done with attorney review. Okay, so we're way past the stage of.
Well, attorney review is just a 3-day period.
I understand, but that comes way before you as a family, us as a family have decided that we want to purchase the land. Attorney review is after you made an offer and you are ready to go and purchase, actually establish the purchase and hope, cross your fingers, that attorney review goes just fine. And we haven't even defined, by the way, what these criteria are that we would actually have a problem during the attorney review, correctly, as it's been established. So that's what I'm proposing here, is it's very similar to what the examples that you very well put out. And I'm saying we need to find out certain specific things. For example, there is a firm that is actually doing some inquiry or research to see what's going on. Let's wait until we find what this comes up with, at least. And let's suspend. I also concur with Karen, my wife, and with with Peter. Please don't take a vote. Let's just wait. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public with public comment?
Martha Shelton, 25 Fairhaven Road. Question, so if something does come up in an inspection, during the inspection contract, to your example of if we're a family buying a home, sometimes something that maybe not gonna cut the deal, but my husband and I talked, do we really want a house with a pool? So what happens if something like that comes up? Are you guys gonna reconvene? Is there another vote? Who has the final say?
The governing board always had the final say in this, because there would be a contingency that was not met, something that violated the contract.
But what if it's something that's more subjective? Like a pool isn't in violation, but when we bought my house, it has a pool, so my husband and I had a discussion. what if something comes up? That's not, like, it doesn't, like, it's not like black and white, there's a gray issue.
So we're
It's a
gonna,
fair question.
we're gonna have to have a thoughtful discussion, like off the top of my head, I'd have to have more information myself on what that issue is. I'm thinking about, what's going on over with the police department, that there's some asbestos there. To me, if I were to hear that in that house, that wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. If I heard that there was a tank that was leaking oil, that would probably be somewhat of a deal breaker for me. So I think we'd have to have more information as to what the environmental issue or whatever the issue was in order to answer that question.
But, I'm sorry, so, not like the type. But not the type of issue, but who, I guess, is it, would you guys take another vote? Let's just say if you guys were 3-3 right now, like, is it you as the mayor, do you get
Is
to?
it tie breaking? The mayor.
So I'm like, are
But-
you guys gonna actually vote
So-
again?
so
So let's just
let
say
me-
there's like a
let-
gray.
Let me see if I can answer your question. I don't know it. I don't, it doesn't sound like there'd be another vote. But I would be reaching out to every member of the governing body independently. To explain the situation and what was going on. To see whether there was consensus in individual consensus. To potentially support me making a decision to move forward at that point.
This is what I know in answer to your question, because it's not that much far from where I was headed. Our mayor does do that. I know that he would do that. However, the way the resolutions have been written, we have fully empowered our borough administrator to roll out all the aspects of this acquisition. And that's why I wanted to know if we need a kill switch for some reason, where is that built in? Because I don't think that this process, was very reassuring to the neighborhood. I don't think that this process gave us a lot of information to deliberate openly in a public forum, which would offer at least a level of reassurance. We don't have any of that information. We've been told, it's gonna happen this way.
Sure.
I have a different process in mind. I'll share with you at another time perhaps. That said, and I've read the documents carefully, the votes that preceded tonight have authorized the borough administrator to act on behalf of this body to complete the acquisition.
I think that,
Are you clear about that?
that's
So
not the,
basically, the mayor, you have the
He'll
power
sign it.
then.
that's not the contract of sale. That is ultimately the paperwork that is run through the state and the county. And just so you know, the county, one of the things, whether it's the Green Acres or whether it's the county themselves, they need to put a lot of resources into this. This still has to go to the county Board of Recreation Commissioners. It has to go to the county commissioners at a public meeting, for their vote for the actual grant and the acquisition. And they don't want to move forward until the borough shows in the form of the ordinance process that the governing body is supportive of this acquisition. That in and of itself, like anything else the county does when there's a grant involved, the public hearing portion of it and the ultimate adoption by the governing body is really what tells them that we're interested in moving forward with the purchase of this and partnering with the county to have them fund the $1,608,775 towards the acquisition.
I think that all makes sense to me. I'm just more curious. It's something, it's just the transparency into the process of, okay, we had the inspection, we have the results. Basically, it's faith in you as the mayor that you guys would come back as the governing body and there's no revote or anything like that. But at the end of the day, you have the authority to say whether we should move forward or not, depending on the findings. It's making that
If there
final.
was an affirmative vote today, it sounds like
Yes,
that's the case.
I'm sorry, assuming that this passes through, who is the person who's gonna get all the findings and has the final say to move forward or not? So like, if you guys are 3-3, even though,
So we're splitting here, I just wanna split this a little bit further if I can, right? So. It lets us, because we're dealing in assumptions, which I hate doing. We're dealing with a process that's been going on for 2-3 years for whatever the involvement in communications look for, right? So I'm gonna qualify this significantly. If there's 4 yeses tonight.
Yeah.
And it moves forward.
Mhm.
And all of the required inspections, I don't care where they come from, all the required inspections that have to get done, and there are no issues,
Mhm.
job can start. Okay, so that's kind of path one.
Yeah, that
Okay.
makes sense.
Then you have this other path where the inspection reveals what I will call not a red line,
Mhm.
right? The house has asbestos. Now we need to get a special abatement, right, to remove it. And there's a bunch of, I think that is gray, right? But there are non-red lines that I think would exist, and if you polled everybody differently, it would be differently.
Yeah.
Then I think what you're getting at is now the red lines, right? What red lines exist that would change the decision to purchase, and what is that threshold? Right, so I'm gonna, as egregious as it may sound, right, we're still joking about the spray pad, right, which is not really, but let's keep that going in the sense of, we find radioactive material in the ground.
Yeah.
Right, and I know, you know, wherever you fall on trust and common sense, right, factors, but I think that if an inspection revealed radioactive material in the ground, right, one, that information would come back to all of us, and two, that would, I would think, and I can't speak for everybody else, but that would significantly shift whether or not we're going to invest in radioactive material cleanup.
Yeah.
So I draw on the starkness of the black and white is something so egregious that it doesn't go through,
Sure.
right? It is clean as a whistle, right, and it goes through. And then kind of this middle gray area where the communication will have to take place across the governing body. Things are not done in, as folks want to see, information is always shared at this level.
Yeah.
Does
No,
that help?
I agree. I don't necessarily mean what's red and what's black and what's gray. I'm just saying, if you guys as a governing body don't necessarily agree, who has the power to override and say, I think this is still good, we're gonna go? And I'm assuming it's that you.
Andrew?
No, I mean, yeah, pursuant to paragraph 2 on the ordinance, the borough attorney and business administrator are hereby authorized to take any and all actions necessary to effectuate the purpose of this ordinance and to acquire the subject property through negotiation.
So I think that's a new fact, I would say, because now we're saying that you.
Not me.
He's not,
There's a
he's not
special
representing
Sorry,
this
okay, so we're
normally.
saying that
But
somebody-
yes, the borough attorney,
somebody that's been elected by us, so none of you guys can still move forward if. Let's just say you guys all say, you know what, it's radioactive, to your point, that's a big no, we can all agree. Somebody who we didn't elect can move forward with the deal, is that true?
Teresa,
So, you know, I assure you, and, you know, I have spoken with Sal Alfieri's office, who has handled a similar purchase for the borough in the past. If there were any issues that the governing body need to be made aware of, I would immediately share them off side of a public meeting, you know, with the mayor and the council president and chair of facilities. And then ultimately they would come back to the full governing body and most likely an executive session if it impacted the negotiations or the price. And at that point, the attorney who's handled the closing would join the governing body and take them through it. And the governing body could make a decision based on new
So,
information as it
just
becomes
time out.
available.
Teresa, just so I'm clear though. You can bring the findings back to everybody, but does that matter? Does the outside counsel still have the power to move forward
No.
with the deal?
What I would never move forward, or nor would a borough professional move forward against the
understand.
wishes of the governing body.
I'm just trying to understand like
That's a
what
fair
the
question.
project
Yeah.
of like, I'm sorry, the process.
I think it sounds like they could, they're not going to. They're not.
well, the
going to.
attorney will
I'm
not do
the mayor, but
it.
They're
it
not
also-
gonna do it unless it's at our direction. It's at
Now
our-
I'm believing you that there's no spray carpet. Now it's like, well, over here, believe me, over here, believe me, it's
Right.
getting a little.
Oh, I think Teresa mentioned that we won't get the grants if there are substantial issues with the property. So that seems to be.
No, I'm past the black and white. I'm just talking about if there's like a gray issue that maybe certain people don't feel comfortable, others do. Now, instead of our mayor,
It's not gonna, at the end of the day, though, it's not gonna be Teresa's decision and the borough attorney. Is that what you're asking?
yes, that's what it sounded like.
The findings need to come back to this body, and right now
It's a
procedurally,
fair question.
it's not set up like
Okay.
that, but we can change that right now.
Because
So I make a motion that the findings as they are completed and submitted to the staff, that they be conveyed immediately to the governing body. And if there's a procedural matter that needs to, if there's some sort of assessment or condition issue that we want to talk about, we do it.
Will these findings be public?
It's all public. record.
Ultimately, the.
There's a motion on the
reports-
table, just, I've made a motion, Teresa.
Sorry, I was trying to answer the question.
I didn't ask the question, I made a motion.
Can you?
And I'll elaborate.
Yeah.
This motion was to pass, that Councilwoman McCall is making right now. It would not be a de minimis change, and it would substantially alter the ordinance. And we would have to start from the beginning, just to let you know.
Because the governing body would like to review the findings.
Absolutely,
majority.
this ordinance,
Right.
number 2, clearly
Written
says
differently.
that they are hereby authorized to take any and all actions necessary to effectuate the purpose of this ordinance.
But if anything comes back to the contract in a negative light, that's not a compliance, it has to come to executive session regardless to talk through.
It always does.
Yes,
But
because there'd be
our
contract negotiations.
That's how we
So-
do, that's how the council works. That's
So-
how we do every contract.
The findings are good, it
This
goes
is
forward.
not
Findings are bad, it comes
different
back
than
to
our
executive
process.
session, it's either we're gonna negotiate price back out of the deal.
If you have oil leakage in the property, I purchased a property that had oil contamination into the water. I was not allowed by my attorney to purchase the property until it was cleaned. It took 6 months. So this is how.
As far as protections, and off of
This is-
Councilwoman Neff's point, number
regular
3
business.
says that the mayor and or the borough clerk are hereby authorized to sign and witness respectively any contract for sale or other documents necessary to acquire the subject property. So if there was a contingency, and there would have to be a waiver of that contingency, because there would be something that violated that contingency. So if there was going to be a waiver, the mayor himself would have to sign off on any documents related to any part of the acquisition of the property.
And it's not myself or the borough attorney or Sal Alfieri that's gonna sign those contracts of sale. It's the mayor. And the clerk will attest to that. The actions I'm authorized to take have to do with the title search and the PASY and all of the checklist items that the county wants to move this purchase forward. Not the actual contract of sale signature.
And Teresa, if I may, there is a motion right now on the table.
Sorry.
Can I address that motion?
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, first of all, we'd have to do a motion in a second, and then there's discussion. So there's a motion by Councilwoman Cole. And if there's.
Is there a second to Councilwoman Cole's motion?
We could just open it for discussion, by the
I
way.
can't have a discussion though, unless somebody
I will
seconds it.
second it.
So you can have a hearing, you can have a discussion. Now,
Is it-
so Councilwoman Koch, yes.
I did ask to speak. I'm becoming a little bit concerned with the language. It's becoming very subjective. You know, who determines what's substantial? There was a quote said before, if there were any issues that the governing body needed to be made aware of, well, who makes that decision? Who decides what issues we should be made aware of? And right now, there's a series of investigations proceeding on the property. Due diligence, contingencies, all of that. I don't understand why we can't get that information before we actually decide to move ahead with the property. Because to me, that really is going to have an effect on what we're purchasing. Are we purchasing something that's defective, or are we purchasing something in great condition? What's it gonna cost to repair that bulkheading? What's it going to cost to take the house down? What happens if there's asbestos in the process of the investigation? That could double or triple the cost of taking down that house. We keep talking about it, but I would like to have more information. And I would like the language cleaned up.
Anyone else with a comment?
As a deliberative body, we're being asked to make a decision without any data. It's confounding, truly. And an acquisition is a big decision. And honestly, a deference for the folks that are here, and even those that aren't, when there is just 90 seconds on this. When there is a goal stated in the master plan, the goal of the master plan has come from the people. And with facilitation by professionals, and that becomes something for the governing body to decide if it's a worthy pursuit. But once that decision is made, that it is a worthy pursuit, you put a planning mechanism in place to begin to investigate the best way you might go about achieving that goal. We skip that. We skip the part where you identify all the concerns. You look at what the puts and takes on what makes the most sense. You do it in a public forum, so it reassures those people who may be impacted by it or not, or may be benefited by it or not. We skipped that step for reasons I don't understand, but we skipped it. It's not the first time I've seen Fairhaven do this. And we went straight to purchase. So now we have a room full of really smart, devoted, caring people, and that includes the people on this dais too. We're all in this together. And we all care about the same thing, but we're tying ourselves in knots around an acquisition because we haven't done the work that leads to this point. I never want to be in this position again. I don't think it's fair to this body. And our purpose is to deliberate, find facts, investigate open questions, conduct
Perfectly
assessments when we have a.
Is there anyone else with a comment?
You're saying,
Yeah, here. Teresa, do you have
We
something?
call-
Can you put your hand up?
No, I'm fine, Mayor. That's fine.
Rodriguez?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can we call a vote on this proposed amendment?
No one else?
Motion.
Roll call?
There was a motion to amend.
motion to amend.
Yeah, I just wanted to call it.
Please have a roll call.
Wait, I'm confused about what we're voting on.
I made a motion to amend the ordinance to provide a step where the findings from the assessments, which are currently underway, will come back to this body, not just this app, but back to this body.
The full report.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna yield to the attorney here, but I don't believe you can amend an ordinance by a motion, correct, Andrew?
Correct. But, the ordinance would have to be recrafted, and then there would be a first and a second reading as well. An introduction, and the readings.
So be it.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
On the motion? Me too.
It's,
On the motion?
Yeah.
yes, on the motion, right? Then we need to know who's for it.
You're talking about the motion to amend the ordinance?
Yes. We
Well,
should
it-
call.
It would be
I asked
a
for a
motion
vote.
to change the language,
Right.
which would then trigger
Starting all over
the
again.
We
reintroduction.
have to vote on that.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we're all clear.
But
Yeah.
I just want to clear what we're voting on. Okay.
So that,
Oh, you wanna call?
The motion, can we have a roll call on the motion? Please.
Councilmembers Cole,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
Barbera,
No.
Neff,
no,
Rodriguez.
No.
Mayor.
There.
No.
Now we vote on the.
Do you have more?
The only other question, if something is identified and you guys decide to withdraw, is there any language in place that would protect you guys from losing money? Whatever you deposited and you have to put money down.
Teresa, I don't know what the language regarding the deposit, probably not.
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
So there has been nothing done financially.
Nothing's been done financially.
No,
Once you do put a deposit down at some point, if we
I don't-
proceed, if it passes tonight, let's just play out the scenario. And you guys put whatever percentage down. And something's identified, is there something that would get the town back their money for?
I don't have anything on the
Withdrawal out
check.
of the,
I don't have anything on the checklist from the county requiring the deposit. And, you know, since the funds are the only funds the borough will have to fund is the borough funding in 335, 625. The county's money is available at closing, provided everything's in order, and Green Acres money is either available at closing or shortly thereafter.
Is there a down payment that we don't get back?
I'm guessing no.
There's
No.
no down payment, I think, until the closing, correct, Teresa, because the county's fronting that money. at
Right, it's
closing.
not I wouldn't even call it a down payment, I would just call it, as part of the whole closing package, the monies will be transferred then.
At the time of closing, Teresa?
Yes, sir.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Hi, Heather came in, 50, Fair Weather Site. My question is simple. I never come to these meetings, which is not a good thing. But I'm here because I'm passionate about our neighborhood. I just don't understand how you can look at everybody out here, knowing that we all disagree with this. It's not even that we disagree. We don't understand what you're trying to do yet, because we still have no answers. And you want us to vote, but you can all sit up there, or some of you, and vote on this to move forward. Why are we rushing? Like, what is the answer to why we are being held with a gun to our heads to do this right now? Like, what is that answer?
So
Because I didn't even know about this at all until the last meeting. And now I'm sitting here and I'm just getting so annoyed because we're going in circles. We have no answers. And everybody is just so quick to say, let's move forward. Like, that's not how you do things. Like, you want the community to want this and you want the community to feel comfortable, but none of us feel comfortable. It feels like we're just being pushed into doing something that nobody even wants, but a couple people. So why do we have to decide tonight?
I just want to make two things clear there. For one, I know that people have thrown out this has been going on for 2 years. From my understanding, this has been discussed since 2016. And not necessarily always in the public, but it's been discussed, Chris, is that an accurate number?
Well, it was the 2016 reference that goes back to the master plan where hundreds of households responded around town, not just the immediate community, but the entire town. And then John Peters put this out there in a meeting where former council president Sorensen, who I think is president of the meeting, she can attest, he brought this up in 2018, which had serious discussion at the time, but the price was not right. It was somewhere in the 3 million range, which just wasn't, something that we were willing to pay for as a town. So, and that was in a public meeting. I don't know the exact date of that meeting.
The second comment that I would rebut is saying that just a few people want it. And listen, I understand, the reason you're so passionate is because this is your neighborhood as part of the community. But I also want to point out that we do also represent 6,000 residents in Fairhaven. And I've had this discussion with a lot of residents, and I'm acknowledging the pain points that you're talking about. But to just say that a few people want this, when I've discussed this park, the potential park with other people, other residents of Fairhaven, everyone's, head over heels excited. So the idea that it's just a few people up here that are in favor of it that's not accurate.
But so the speed limit thing that you put out, I guess, 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So for instance, I live on Fairwaters, the back of my house is on Riverlawn.
Yep.
I've called the police multiple times because I can't get out of Riverlawn because there's a car parked on Fairhaven Road.
Sure.
And I literally cannot turn because there's the lawn guys, people are parked, whatever. So you put that speed limit thing out this week. Do we have anything on that?
She's here.
She's here.
We have it, we'll have it back.
Right, but we're making a vote on something. You put that out last week or 2 weeks ago.
We'll have the data yet.
Well, we should have a little data if we're gonna vote on something. How are we voting on something that we don't have the information? So that's my only question, like, why do we have to vote on this tonight? That's my only answer I want. Is like, why we have to vote on this?
So, thank you.
Steve Kamen, 50 Fairway. So just sitting here listening to you talk about the fact that these conversations about the property have taken place for the last 6 years actually don't make anybody feel any better. Because you've had 6 years of contemplating, talking, planning, imagining what this property is going to be. And you've had more time to do the required studies for traffic and safety and health and welfare.
That's not quite true, sir. You know, we're not gonna put a ton of money into planning for a property that we don't have any idea whether we have the ability to acquire at the end of the day. It's just, you know, we have a lot of things that we're putting our time and energy to in the borough of Fairhaven. And to refocus on a purpose when we don't know we're gonna actually get to a destination, quite truthfully, we're not doing, you know, what we should be doing for the people that elected us. That, you know, to think that that's all we're gonna do for 6 years is just focus on the one properties and after as well. I know, I didn't, and I apologize for even insinuating you said that, because you did not. I think what I'm saying is like, this small town, but it's got a lot of things going on all at once. And although we've been discussing it for 6 years, we really didn't totally hone in on it until we knew that this was a possibility that we could actually ascertain. And that's really come into focus now in the last year. And at one point we walked away from it. It didn't, you know, it wasn't working for us, and a few things came together, and now obviously it's on our plate, and we're moving forward because we think it's the best thing to do for the borough of Fairhaven.
If I were to ask,
Why you were gonna walk?
What's that?
What were the reasons why you were gonna walk away out of here?
3.5.
Some of it was financial, you know, the unwillingness of the homeowner to negotiate in any way. They weren't interested in doing it, some of the demands that they were making to us as well in that negotiation.
The grant money changed too, so Monmouth County upped it to 75% coverage by 25. So the cost was gonna be 3 times more to the borough. And then they choose a program that changed the entire discussion.
Ad hoc plan, I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead, Paul.
I'm sorry, you're talking about. You're talking about ad hoc planning, that just makes no sense, and to your point. You're saying we can't plan on anything until we acquire it. We have a master plan, we've identified objectives. That's what a planning process is for. That's what urban planning is for, is to identify then what perhaps within your town, that you have some criteria. As opportunities present themselves, do they measure against information? Why wouldn't we spend money to find out professional?
We're going to.
No, I'm saying ahead of time. Why wouldn't we be investing in our plan of development of our town? This idea that we're going to need to buy a piece. And before we can make a plan, because we're not gonna spend any money to make a plan, is absurd.
So you want us to spend the money to planning to identify a different piece of property that may never become available to us? Is that
I
what
think
you're,
that if you have an objective to make waterfront available
right?
to the town, I think that you need to have criteria that those properties would address, or that would make them appropriate for consideration beyond price, the ability to finance the price, and the ability of the property. I can have a coupon for a size 2 dress. If I don't wear one, it doesn't matter. If I'm a size 6, the coupon is shit. So it just, I don't understand this idea
Karen,
that we have this grant, that we have this money, that this is such a good value because it's $336,000. I'm saying, if this has been the long range plan, you can identify where there's waterfront access in our town. I think that involving professional planners and saying, some of these have no hope. Some of these, if the properties become available, I mean, some of them, you don't have a prayer because the private market will annihilate them. I don't think that this is beyond the pale. I don't think that, it's saying, why would we have done planning? You do planning so that your town grows in the image of what you've asked people, are they interested in, and in what this master plan is. That in fact, this is the definition of poor planning.
You're talking about two different things.
I'm talking about.
Hang on, I gave you the respect to talk, and can I please have a minute, please?
Yes,
Right? So when you look at the 2016 master plan and what it calls out, right? It calls out multiple different components, right? And that is the town's guide of how we are to make decisions. So what additional planning beyond the master plan, right, are you discussing here, right, should have been invested?
yes.
That's what I'm
And-
specifically looking, because what I'm trying to understand from your perspective is where's the line? Right, in the sense of the micro projects we just did, right? And the 42 locations across town that we're gonna improve sidewalks, we're gonna improve curbing, we're gonna improve streets. Was there a large plan that looked at every piece of curbing, sidewalk, and street and determined conditions, and then took those conditions and compared it to resident anecdotes to really hone in on those 42 areas?
No, but I would hope that you at least looked at stormwater and drainage. I mean, now let's talk about what pertains to what projects.
Exactly right. So the question becomes to what extent, right, is of planning, right? And what is the balance of investment and funds that you pay with the decision that you make? And if the park, right, the proposed park, which we haven't even acquired yet, right? Or haven't even agreed to acquire yet. But what if it's aligned with the overall master plan, which followed a process, came through community engagement? Where is the master plan lacking? And then how does that, so the master plan itself lacked in planning?
The support for.
No, hang on, I want to hear what she has, I just want to hear.
The support for the master plan. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to antagonize me.
No, I'm not.
I'm kind of stupid. The support for the master plan and plan,
Karen,
I don't
Just a
understand.
second though, before we lose the import of what's happening.
I also want to let Steve finish
I'm
this.
so
He
sorry.
was in the middle of it.
Well, all right, what Karen is saying is very important. I support it. I guess the only point that I would make would be, if I were to ask each of you on the council, what is your opinion currently of the traffic and parking situation on that part of Fairhaven Road? What would your honest assessment be?
I think it needs to be drastically improved,
Thank you,
drastically.
thank you,
And it's exacerbated by the fishing and crabbing that take place at the dock.
thank you,
And potentially an expansion of public use at the end of Fairhaven Road.
thank you.
So we'll have to.
That's not why parking is an issue today, though.
Right.
He's asking why parking is an issue today,
I said potential.
right? And
And I mean, I don't see any possibility that that gets better between now and the time that whatever happens at that part of the street ends up happening.
So,
So let me just finish. My question is, how much more traffic do you think could potentially occur? And where are you gonna put it? Specifically, where are you going to put it?
right. So, to answer your question, I actually think, I'm hopeful that the traffic rolls back a little bit based on some of the restrictions and prohibitions that we're putting in place. That's the hope. Now, I'm saying the word hope because, action, reaction, you don't know what that reaction is gonna be. But, as we discussed at the last meeting, and I believe it'll be on the next agenda, we're looking to set actual times for crabbing officials. We're looking to say, right now, the number I have, I'm not saying that that's where we're gonna come back with next meeting, but it's looking like 8 AM to 9 PM. So we see a lot of people that are coming to crab and they're staying outside of those timelines, whether it be in the morning or late at night. In addition to that, as you know, we've gotten rid of the porta potty. That's not coming back. It's not coming back next summer. So we think that'll have a positive effect on what's going on. We're looking to prohibit open flames. alcoholic beverages, tents, mattresses, coolers larger than a 10-quart capacity, smoking, and then crabbing and fishing during special events, weddings, which isn't what we're talking about here. We're also looking to restrict on top of the no crabbing and fishing outside of the hours 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're also trying to restrict coolers under 10-quart capacity to 1 per person. In addition to that, the chief and I have had discussions on parking. We're trying to needle down to get to the right spot. You know, he's been looking at the traffic study, we're talking about on Clay Street, it's a 3-way stop sign, chief?
Oh, yeah.
A 3-way stop sign, the area past Fairwater's Lane down to the bottom of the dock is likely to be made no parking on both sides of that little inlet area. And then the rest of Fairhaven Road to Clay Street on both sides, with the exception of where there's no parking signs already, would turn into a 2-hour parking zone between those same hours, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., as well as on Fairwater's Lane. So those are the things we're discussing. They're not set, but to answer your question, we're trying to have a positive impact on that situation based on some of the conditions we're set.
You haven't mentioned Fairwater's Lane.
The 2-hour parking would extend to Fairwater's Lane as well. Yes, during the hours of 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Yeah. I also want to add in one part that's probably the most, well, 2 more things. We're talking about an increased monitoring of the garbage on the dock, which I think we heard from everyone that was a concern as far as the smell and just the way that people were treating it. But the most important, and the chief approved me saying this, that there will be active enforcement at the dock from spring to fall 2024 and moving forward. And also, if anyone's been down there, you just see for now, not necessarily that it's going to be permanent, but there's currently a camera monitoring the dock 24/7.
And those are all positive movements.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the overwhelming feeling still is that the governing body is moving forward and even a little bit blindly in a direction of something they believe some people want. All right, based on a study that took place 6 or 7 years ago. However, the implementation is very likely to exponentially negatively impact the people in this neighborhood, much more than it would benefit the handful of people that would walk their dogs home every day. So that's going to be the legacy of your governing body. Because like those decisions, I understand are going to be made probably after you're gone. Sure. But you got the ball rolling.
Understood. Hopefully it's part of my legacy, but I understand what you're saying.
But I want to go, if mayor, may I just
Sure.
address, there was, a very important, just to frame. I think everyone in this room means well. I also believe that at any point after the master plan was written in 2016, which was just a reexamination and opening up public access to the waterfront was a goal. We could have immediately initiated the planning investigation to look at how we would go about achieving that goal. There's potentially 7 different locations for public access to the river, all of which tie in with a stormwater outfall. So there's a technical infrastructure component to explore all that. It's something we haven't even talked about here, but that didn't happen. It can happen at any time. And even now, it's not too late to do that. When that report was written in 2016 or adopted in 2016, I'm not even sure 21 Fairhaven Road was in play. Could have been in the back of somebody's mind, maybe not, we don't know. And it doesn't matter. The question of public access to the water is a good one. We can probably all agree, even in this room, if there was some guardrails around this idea of what a little passive park would be like at the end of the road, you might really like that idea if we had given it shape and form and guardrails through that planning process. And we would all be in this room together, maybe agreeing to something beautiful that we can anticipate together with some enthusiasm.
Like showing up in an interview prepared.
Yeah.
We're not prepared in the interview.
Yeah. So I don't want to let this moment go by without us as a governing body recognizing that there was a way to do this. We chose not to. I'm not, I can't say I didn't choose not to. That's what I would have wanted to do. And I really think it's money well spent. Planning doesn't cost a lot of money in comparison to what we're doing right now. It's seed money, and it also sets up the process for decision making, and it includes the community. I hope that's the way we do it from now on.
Sure.
Other came in 50 comments. My question is actually for the chief. Is this the first time we're doing a study of the traffic barrier? Because we don't have any research on it. It seems like it's the first time we're looking at it.
Well, recently, I don't know, we might have done this past, but we got complaints about speeders, right? Recently, right? Especially after that, tells me that way.
Well, I've lived there for 10 years and I think I've complained a lot of times.
But even up, the day after your last meeting, I came down a few days ago, we got on it was.
But before that, we haven't even looked at, like, nobody has ever thought that Fairhaven Road has too much traffic. And we've never thought that like kids might get hit because there's so many cars that like these little kids on their bikes with these big, huge like Yukons and Explorers and are parked in the thing, and then you got the long guys and these poor little kids are coming around the corner. I've almost hit a kid a couple of times because you cannot see them. Like you cannot see them. And I think unfortunately, it's gonna take someone getting hit for the town to realize that it's a problem. So I don't understand how we've never even addressed that. And we're moving forward with making a decision on the park. And it's not even the park. I actually think the park could probably be lovely. But
I think it's gonna be lovely.
yeah, I'm sure it will be. But we've got to address the first problem, and that's the traffic. Otherwise we would be here for 7 hours discussing this.
Just on your point, I want to address, because I said it last meeting, I don't anticipate moving fast here. I want to make sure you understand that. There's, and I've had a discussion with Councilman Cole as well about the planning process. After we're talking about acquiring the property. I don't think we're opening a park there, 2 months from now. That's not something we're looking
But
to
you're like
do.
easing us into it, and then you're gonna go, like that's how. it
No,
works.
I think we're.
I mean, come on.
I think we're gonna approach it, quite truthfully, this governing body, a fair, assessment of how we're gonna handle it is the police department and DPW. We sat here at every single meeting, we include the public, we told them every little probably too much detail. I think it was a certain point, I was like, Drew, it's in the PowerPoint, so it's a little much, but it was done the right way. It really
We
was.
didn't have any studies of the cars on the street. Like, that's the most important thing that we should all be talking about.
That's gonna be part of that
And we
process.
don't have a study over the last 10 years.
That's gonna be part of that process. It is. And as we determine
I just
what,
want that on the record.
what that
part of the study of the.
what that park's gonna be. What we're gonna put down there, how we're gonna handle the traffic at that point. Right now, we're putting in these parking things in place now, based on what we have now. The idea is to see if we can have positive intervention in that area based on these prohibitions, restrictions, and parking changes right now. That's the idea. That doesn't mean that we're done with what that park's gonna be, and that's just how we're gonna handle it moving forward.
Then we're making a decision based on something we own.
So if I can just interject for 1 second. As someone that sat as the vice chair of the planning board, through the decision to let the Dunkin' Donuts come in. This application, if it was approved tonight, you did go under contract and went through the process and did in fact acquire the property. Any sort of planning would have to go before the planning board. We have to be approved by our planning board. We have a planning board attorney. And that would go through, I'm sure, dozen hours of hearings about what the community wants and what they're looking to do. And traffic would obviously be one of the components that the planning board would have to consider when any sort of decision made what to put in this property at 21 Fairhaven Road. There will, it's not, like the mayor said, it's not gonna be overnight.
No, I get everything you're saying. My only thing is, I just find it crazy that we're making a decision on something that we've never done a traffic study. And it's one of the busiest streets in Fairhaven, I mean, quite honestly, you know, in a little neighborhood. So, I mean, I can talk till I'm blue in the face, obviously, everybody has their opinions, but I just wanted on record that we didn't really do a traffic study.
Susan Sorensen, 34 Clay Street. I want to address what you're saying. I lived on Clay Street and the corner of Clay Street, there, and I'm, where do I live? Normanton. And, it's been a long time. And when they were buying the property at the end of the Normandy, the council sat down and we had a conversation. I don't know if you, before you guys maybe moved in, that was not a four-way stop. And there were multiple accidents, multiple things that happened there, and I had two, and you know, my kids. I had a lot of little kids running around that neighborhood. And I came to the council and I said, when you guys are gonna buy that piece of property, please, for the love of God, put in a three-way stop. Please look at the traffic. They bought the property and they did look at the traffic and they put in a four-way stop, which is now a strength of four-way stop, because I worked for 10 years to get that four-way stop. But at the end of the day, this governing body is going to do what's good for all of Fairhaven. They're not gonna put something in that's going to cause your children to get hit by a car. They're gonna do a study, they're gonna make sure that everything's okay, if they choose to move forward with the park. So that's something that I wanna make sure that you're well aware of. They're not gonna just willy-nilly do something. And I've been on that side and I appreciate everything, believe me, I've been there, done that, and I appreciate all that you guys are doing, and this is not easy.
But our street.
Yes, Normandy is the busiest small street in Fairhaven. And I live on that. It is the busiest small street in Fairhaven. And it is, and it's a different street, and it's busier than Fairhaven Road, believe it or not, because I've got work, I've got things to do. Your street is extraordinarily busy, that street's busy, believe it or not, it is. And so they will put in a three-way stop if we ask them to. And I think that is a great addition to what's gonna happen.
Why haven't we done that yet? I mean, the traffic.
Trust me, it took me 10 years. I was told I had to have a deck to have a four-way stop sign.
Don't look at me,
Way previous town council, but it wasn't that, it was a county.
To answer your question, and I can't speak for chief, I don't know if people asked him, but the first I heard for a request from a three-way stop sign at Clay was 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, whenever the last meeting was. And you know, a lot of the time, sometimes it's the information we garner from the public. I think Allison and Chris was probably, and Betsy might have been on there. I mean, I used to come as a resident, there's a stop sign on Spruce Drive that it was amazing to me that there was no stop sign there. And I came to the council and it showed on my iPad, we got to fix this. My kids are on their bikes, they're riding their bikes, it's a dangerous situation. And the chief had a stop sign up there, like 2 months later, it got done. So sometimes it's just, it's feedback from our residents letting us know, hey, we sense a safety issue here. This is how it could be improved. So I'm out here saying this to everyone here. And I think I sent an email to a lot of your community, making sure that you understand that it might not seem like it, but I hear you again. I know how sensitive it is. It's your home, it's your neighborhood. And we're not going to do this in a way that's going to further exacerbate that. We're not. We're going to do it the right way. So if you have additional recommendations for your community, whether it be on the dock, I mean, without getting into too much information, we tried to be even more restrictive on the dock, but NJDEP unfortunately regulates the crowding. So that was something that was, you know, disappointing to us. But if you have other ideas, we want to hear them. Don't keep them to yourselves. Email me tomorrow. If you don't trust me, email someone else, whatever it is. If you have an idea, let us know, because we want to incorporate it into what we're doing on your street and the surrounding communities to ensure that you don't have a problem when eventually this park becomes an actual park. 100%. What a mess that would be if that was my legacy, that it was a disaster down there and there were parties and garbage and traffic issues and you know, all this spray park and all these things that you're talking about. That would be devastating to me. That is not what I want as your mayor. I'm telling you right now that I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to see the whole field, the whole playing field, Borough, Fairhaven. I think this is a good purchase for our town. I hear you. I hear what you're saying with a planning perspective. We're gonna plan for this park and we're gonna do it the right way. And there seems to be there seems to be a deviation between whether that should be done before the acquisition. I'm not saying you're wrong, or do it after the acquisition. There is a grant involved that's substantial, that does have us on a timeline, and maybe that's driving some of the things we're doing here. But that's a reality. So, with that being said, I mean, I appreciate everyone's feedback here. You got someone else?
So-
Yep.
To your point, well, I wanted to get back to the crabbing timing, but because now I guess it's a DEP, so I was gonna ask, I thought it was supposed to be dusk to dawn, or dawn to dusk.
This is
Big difference.
regarding an ordinance step part. We are going off on.
So so we're restricted because of the,
So we can discuss that during the. planning commission ordinance.
yeah, okay. But he brought it up, that's why.
It's come.
Okay,
Yeah.
but regardless of buying, purchasing the park, there was a lot of issues with parking, speed,
Yes.
et cetera, on that road. And prior to even purchasing the park, or regardless of purchasing that park, could something be done? And I will tell you, putting in the four-way stop under Normandy was a godsend for people who lived in that area, to Normandy and Clay. So putting a stop, first of all, putting a stop sign at the top of Clay Street into Fairhaven Road would be lovely as well. But making that a three-way stop, regardless of whether you purchase the park or not, as well as addressing the speed and the parking on that road would also help that neighborhood tremendously.
I think the stop in some ways addresses this thing on its own.
It does,
Yeah.
it will absolutely, because I had people dragging boats, and I swear to God, they were going 50 miles an hour, and then there were neighbors that were then caught going 50 miles an hour, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah,
Our intention is, even if we were not to acquire this park, if the vote was no, our intention is still to follow through on all of these items.
that was all. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. Balaji said, I'm very good. I just want to add to all of this that, you know, right now we're discussing this whole matter, and I'd like to ask for you guys to really think about that this started 7 years ago, and that things have changed dramatically in the past 7 years. We went through a new election, COVID, and now another new election, and a lot of things have happened. A lot of changes have occurred. And I believe that at this point in time, I'm asking you to consider that when you vote. Just on a matter of principle, that there are a lot of things that have occurred. So relying on the information and the process from back in 2016, relying on the fact that it's not in the master plan, or saying that it is part of it, there should have been something introduced into the master plan in order to be able to evaluate or other procedures before we purchase. I'm just saying that simply on the fact that the changes that have occurred require us to perhaps delay and look at what is happening on 7 Fairhaven Road before we commit to any kind of purchase at any kind of price. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the public with a comment? Allison? Anyone want?
No.
Do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Cole,
No.
Chloe,
Yes.
Hodge,
No.
Barbara Farah,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes,
Thank you. Moving along, presentation, CDBG grant, bicentennial hall plans, Matt Cronin, architect. Risa?
No, Matt should be here.
Is Matt here?
Should
Oh,
be
Matt's
there.
here.
He's here.
Come on, Matt. Come on.
I'm scared.
Everyone, Matt's here.
Everybody take
Do
a
you
breath.
need a,
So,
you need a?
I've tried, but Allison said we were gonna use.
Do you want
Okay.
the schematic first or?
Can we put the plans up those?
Bicentennial Hall?
Is everyone familiar with bicentennial halls, or would you like to go through the photos, or we'll just get?
Just go to the plan.
Then could you go to?
Schematic?
Yeah, please, plan sheet A1.
There you go.
Thank you. All right, so we. As I was asked to,
Gentlemen, you're being recorded.
I was asked to come up with several different concepts for the repair of the ramps and the upgrading of the ADA access to the building to be done in conjunction with a community development block grant for Bicentennial Hall. So Plan A, we have on the lower part there is an existing bathroom, and then we're adding a fully accessible handicap accessible bathroom at the top, taking out the coat closet, and then the ramp and the patio, the ramp and the landings would, as you see, the wood knee wall, excuse me, the wood knee walls there, we would be removing them and refinishing the surface and adding metal railing similar to the front porch. Expanding the one landing at the rear of the building and creating a more accessible and less obvious way to get into the building. And then there would also be, part of the site work would be an extension of a path and an accessible parallel parking space across the street.
And Matt, on this picture here, the middle one,
Yeah,
there's the window, and then they're drawing the window.
that's
down.
just a drafting error.
Okay, got it. So the window stays, you don't move the window.
Correct, yeah, it shows up on the elevation.
Alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries, I just want to confirm.
So then, the next sheet, please.
So Matt, maybe just to review, because we could go back a little bit, if some of us were here, some of us weren't. The ADA grant was approved and Matt was hired to prepare the schematics and move ahead with construction drawings after this was sent to the Historic Preservation Commission. So the Historic Preservation Commission has been interacting with Matt on narrowing down an approach. And Matt prepared 2 schemes, which you'll go through, it sounds like, and they settled on a hybrid, which everyone saw in a memo. I assume everyone had a chance to read it, but you're gonna take us.
Yes,
through
through all three
Okay,
of them.
great.
The first 2 plans, plans A and B are the plans that I presented to the HPC earlier this month.
Mhm.
And you see in the elevations, one is you do see the window and the existing bathroom remains. And then essentially we're removing that wood knee wall that was built in the late 70s, and that is starting to fail. So rather than trying to repair it, we can take it out. It's about 8 inches thick. That gives us the width to get the proper width between the railings, and then we would put up install a metal railing, again, similar to the front porch. And the open railing would also assist in the drainage from the ramp and some of the landings. Excuse me, at the HPC meeting, some of the people in the audience had photographs of the water pooling on the ramp, which is mostly because of the walls, but we would also have a chance to repitch the slab a little bit away from the building. This plan calls for a 4-foot extension of the landing to the west, the upper landing to the west, and relocation of the door on the side of the building. The HPC was fine with that change as far as the aesthetics. And they were
they reviewed it and they had no problem with that. That's the highlights of this plan. Could you go to, two, or, B2, B1, I guess, yeah. The next one. This is, the ramp, essentially the same, changes to the ramp railings and all. The upper landing does not get, enlarged, the coat closet stays, and then we adapt the existing bathroom to become ADA accessible. That obscures the side window from the body of the church, and that was an element that the HPC was not terribly thrilled with. The other comment was with Plan A was losing the coat closet, which they kind of liked in this Plan B. So then we came up with Plan C, which was reviewed by the HPC by email. I believe all you have it. And then Allison, could you? The next one, please.
You mean one more?
One more. C, one C. I think it's another PDF.
Yep.
Matt, while she's looking at the parking spots in the street,
That's the plan. There is no plan to add parking to the site, so there's parking on the opposite side of Cedar. So they would, the town would, call out an accessible space, close to the crosswalk. Then they would, people who needed it would cross the crosswalk and come up the path to the ramp. This is Plan C, which is the ramp improvements are similar to A. The interior improvements are also similar. We add a fully compliant ADA restroom to the rear, remove the coat closet, and then take out the existing bathroom and add a coat closet in the front, also clearing the side window. The front window is also in there.
What's advantageous about removing a bathroom to like a public?
There was some discussion of that, and it was the idea of having some storage, having some coat storage. I suspect we might be able to find other places to store the coats. But the existing bathroom, as it stands, and the new accessible bathroom would both be, if you went with Plan A, would both be unisex bathrooms, single use. And so they would, all the bathrooms would be unisex bathrooms, single use. So
Does the square footage necessitate 2 bathrooms? What did the HPC have to say about that?
it's 2 bathrooms get you about 50 people. If you're going by the plumbing code.
Where's one bathroom get you?
25-ish.
I had conversations anecdotally with folks about 1 bathroom versus 2, and most folks said 1 bathroom is sufficient. That having the space to move all the chairs out of the way in case there was something happening in that space that involved reception type, we have people circulating, would have a benefit.
but it would just be 1 handicap bathroom then?
It would be 1 bathroom.
I think the concern then is if a handicapped person needs to use the bathroom, someone's in the bathroom, they can't use it.
Well, for a few minutes.
And we also have that annual thing there, right, when there's more than 25 people in the building, right? That events become nice and big, right, where we live. I'm just
I
like,
don't know that you
In
would,
the grand scheme of things, this building's been a 1 bathroom building for. I don't know how long, so we are grandfathered in regardless of what the plumbing code says.
right,
I was just
understood.
using that as a gauge when we were talking about capacity.
Is it more expensive to demo and remove a bathroom than, what's more expensive?
Keeping the bathroom or removing it.
Yeah, I'm not being funny,
How
I'm
long
curious.
say removing a bathroom would be Mark, we can't use that bathroom as is.
Right.
So we would have to adapt that bathroom. So there is an economic sense or cost effectiveness to keeping the front bathroom and just adding the accessible bathroom in the rear. Again, using some of the feedback from the HPC about not blocking the window. Which makes sense.
Yeah, it's their job to care for and look after the architectural elements.
Those windows are stained glass, right?
They are, yeah.
But there's a stained glass window in the current bathroom. right now.
There is,
Yeah.
so that would be in the coat closet in Plan C.
Right.
I think we apply for the grant. Through the county, 1 or 2 bathrooms.
Just ADA compliant.
It was, and the number of bathrooms was ambiguous. It was provide an ADA compliant bathroom. So we are providing an ADA compliant bathroom.
I'm fine with 1 bathroom.
I mean, I have a little hesitation with limiting the number of people that can use it,
How do you limit the number of people to use it?
even though it's grandfathered in, the plumbing code dictates how many people can be in the facility, so.
It doesn't mean you kick out 25 people since you only have 1 bathroom.
Right, I understand that, you know, but going back to the methodology with how we did the community center, the DPW, right, we took in the factors around it. Now, where would you put a coat closet? Or where could you put a coat closet if you had the 2 bathrooms?
Couple of thoughts, one would be in that, the landing above the basement stairs there to the right, in the other wing. Sort of add a closet in front of that. Other ideas, just throw it out there.
Did DJ add any valuable insight as far as, you know, the different people that are using the facility and how often they use the coat? Obviously, we're talking about a coat closet, talking about coats half the year.
Right.
We're only talking about 6 months due to
But
weather.
other storage needs, I think.
So are the chairs, when they're not being used, are they going in that closet right now?
It's just a room, there's no closet. Right now, it's just a nook in the back where that bathroom is, and
I
things
mean,
do
if it's
get
not
put,
being used, I don't see a reason.
things do get put there. I mean, I'm not there every time that space is used, but.
Teresa?
Mayor, there is a closet in that building, for as long as I've been here, we've never used the closet. Generally speaking, when I discussed this with both Rich Bardella and DJ, you know, when people come to meetings, you know, just like here at Borough Hall, people tend to put their coat in the back of their chair. They don't, you know, look for a coat closet in something like that. And based on the number of people who use that facility, it's really up to the governing body. But if you really want to get full usage out of it, to rip out a perfectly good bathroom, to only end up with 1 bathroom, you know, which is really going to limit, you know, access to a bathroom if you want to have, you know, any type of decent meeting space there. And, you know, it's not going to cost you anything to keep the current bathroom. I mean, it's fully serviceable at this juncture. You could look for, I mean, other alternatives as far as that goes, but I assure you that closet that's there currently hasn't been used in as long as I've been here, since we redid it, which is probably about 8 years ago.
We're gonna do more to this building, right?
Yes.
Okay, so can I just maybe
It's.
say, maybe we do the work with the 2 bathrooms, and then if we find that we have a storage issue, we could pivot at that point the next time we do work, because then you're just talking about pretty much demolition of that area and redoing the flooring and the walls, right?
You know, go in and get out once, you know, and then maintenance, but your point is valid. I mean, I do see some advantage to keeping what's already there. It has utility, the bathroom that's currently in place, and obviously,
But it's not like we're doing the DPW like all at once.
Right.
So this is a phase 1.
mhm.
So if we do the phase 1, and then we find, hey, there's a need for storage and there's not a need for as many restrooms, we could then pivot and turn that second restroom back into.
Well,
into
why don't we say that storage will be part of the scope of improvements they are developed once we update that punch list and go
Can we talk a little
through.
bit about the punch list?
Mhm.
I actually
But
have
there-
one more question. What if,
There's a basement that's building as
I
well.
understand that, there's grant money involved though here, right?
Correct.
Okay,
For
so
this.
for this, so does that grant money work for the demolition if that were to be turned into a coat closet or no?
I don't believe that was part of the original submission, Mayor. Certainly the ADA bathroom and the ramp was. If you recall, the original ordinance had a larger scope of work, some that was grant funded and some that was not. And ultimately, the governing body decided to just do work that would be covered under the grant, which would be the ADA bathroom and the ramp.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's not,
So the grant covers the ADA, but there's a punch list item, there's landscape that has to get done, and there's additional fund already authorized on the previous bond ordinance to do that work.
In the amount of about 300.
I forget the number, 3 and change.
so there'd be no,
325.
there'd be no financial,
325.
there'd be no financial benefit though to doing it now. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so I'd say do it.
If
phase
you keep the existing bathroom at the ADA and then make sure storage is factored in, so.
Ask DJ to get feedback from some of the groups that go in there. Was, did you use both bathrooms?
Mhm.
Did you need to
Mhm.
use the coats?
And just-
Did you wish you had a closet?
Mhm.
Put the pipe of plumbing in and not make it a bathroom, so that.
Well, we have to make an ADA bathroom.
Yeah,
It's the ADA one we're doing no
Oh,
matter
I'm
what.
sorry.
It's the other one that's already existing.
And there's just two things I wanna bring up, right? We have an opportunity to get Bicentennial Hall up to a maintainable status, right? So it needs to be painted. There's something with the gutters, right? There's other pieces that
watertight basement.
exactly, right? So all of these pieces should come back together. This is Jude's opinion, right? Welcome feedback. So that the building then can be maintained, so that something doesn't then become beyond repair and we end up in the PD, CC, DPW scenario. So I like that we have, I don't say we use all 325,000 extra that we have beyond the grant. However, I think there is the punch list item, the landscaping can be spruced up, definitely needs to be painted. I think there's some items there, and adding the storage, I think makes sense. The one thing on the storage, we just want to make sure it's cargo storage. Because how do we figure out what groups allowed to store? We came out and told groups that they're not allowed to do storage now with the new building, so I just want to make sure we maintain consistency. But
Yeah,
if we change our storage policy, great, we should have to offer it for everybody.
yeah, no, you're right.
Just want to make
Can
sure.
I
we-
ask you a question?
Sure.
I was there for a meeting last week and there's little to no outdoor lighting. Would that fall under ADA?
We could easily light the ramp. And then we could look at the idea of lighting, enhancing the accessibility for people with vision problems. And that might fly
There
under the grant.
literally is one little tiny light bulb over the entrance.
Betsy, that light bulb was like 21.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it was, I mean, it's really dark. And someone's gonna trip on those bricks. So
Yes.
if we could do something with lighting, that would be,
That sounds like an ADA improvement. to me.
yes, well, limited vision.
Low tucked in, sensitive to the residents in the area.
We can follow the same guidelines we did with the community center. We did a lighting analysis. We looked at the lumens. We had a map that showed how many feet the light goes out, right? We could take all that into consideration when we put it together.
And I'm wondering if HPC wants to see that. Maybe. It's a public safety thing and it has to happen, but the way in which it's done, we might want to have their input.
Yeah, I think they should
Food for thought.
remain a partner. though.
Yeah.
They're gonna.
They should be a stakeholder. Yeah, it needs to be fixed, but the HBC should be considered a stakeholder
Agreed.
and be part of the process.
Okay, yeah, good.
Anything else? Brad?
No,
We good?
Do
Any
you
other
want some
questions?
like feedback and stuff that we can, what we just talked about, sent to you, so you have some notes to,
um,
like, what's the next step is basically what I'm getting at.
Well, I think
Teresa?
I think the next step is we have to give Matt guidance in what plan we like to develop. I know Matt was copied, as was the facilities committee, on a recent exchange where we talked about leaving the second bathroom, which was essentially Plan A. And I think our Pavlov, I'm not gonna put words in his mouth, but Matt can attest to the fact that they were definitely open-minded to that concept, that they understood that it would be fine to leave that second bathroom in place if that's what the governing body ultimately decided that they wanted to do. But we've got to move forward with this grant. We're behind from a time perspective. We give them monthly updates that Allison's been taking care of to CDBG, and basically they just been, very simple of what we're doing, but they know we've met with the Historic Preservation Commission. They know Matt's presented the plan. So I think at this juncture between Matt and Rich, they have to move forward to get something on paper that we can actually ultimately put out to bid. Which PS, by the way,
So we've got 2 bathrooms, the ramp with the railing minus the knee wall. There's gonna be some low level lighting, which will coordinate with HPC with the.
And you'll probably, Tracy, I think you're gonna need some lighting, up that ramp that's gonna come from the street also, if you think about it. From the handicap parking space, probably some low level lighting on
The
that
whole path
also.
from the sidewalk to the ramp.
So we'll just coordinate with that. So it's all very sensitive to the historic commission, but also to the residents in the area. But we can agree, if we agree, then Matt can develop.
And I would just like to put it on paper,
Yeah.
right? So like
yeah,
what
yeah.
we just said, right? Because I don't want to lose the punch list out of the
So
the
there's,
landscaping, the painting, right?
and there's more.
Right, but the point is, I want to make sure, Matt, right? So right now, this would be considered design, correct?
Correct.
You're gonna shift into schematic, I'm assuming next,
It's really the schematic design. I mean, the next would be a.
CDs.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
construction.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the,
That's fair, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just think the guidance from what we talked about should be put on paper, right? See it very, very clear. This way you have clear guidelines, guardrails, and then you can go.
that'd be helpful.
And if you can continue to provide periodic updates, and we'll figure out what that looks like.
And then, Teresa, you might be able to help with this. Then I go back to the HPC and then come back here.
Well,
I don't think you need to do that. And Teresa, may I chime in? Do you mind? I think we can write this and send it to the Historic Preservation Commission and convey a letter, a memorandum from the governing body. That should be adequate.
yes. My only point was that we do need approval from the CDBG group before we go out to bid, Matt. So they'll want to see the actual, construction documents before we actually put them out to bid.
I would like to do a page chart.
It's just, it's just so you know.
Right, but all the other, like, the punch list.
It's not gonna be in this.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what we got. The ramp and the ADA. Yes, my friend.
check,
We're good.
got it.
That's,
Yes.
you're good.
Okay, that's on us to work out to make sure the other enhancements are done. Okay, check, got it.
Now, are you you're not gonna include them in this bid or anything like that?
No,
That's a totally different animal or?
Yes, it's phase 2.
I believe we have to keep these separate. Teresa, what we do with the CDBG money as a set of drawings, can that be a sheet within a larger set of
Well,
drawings? Get this out?
ultimately, yes, I believe, I'll double check, Tracy, but if you recall, when we did this originally with CDBG, we did have a scope of work that was covered by the grant, a scope of work that was not covered by the grant, and they didn't have a problem with that conceptually, as long as, because the grant is absolutely specific to ADA improvements and ADA improvements only. Because that's the only thing we qualify for community development block grants in
The
Fairhaven.
original approval included
Right.
all the other
So-
stuff that we're talking about, why would we?
Well, we could pace ourselves to catch up to, if we cut Matt loose, let him do his thing, and then get the rest of our stuff in order quick, which is, we can do that.
Yeah,
We can do
we
that.
have in-house expertise that can be drawn and stuff like that, right? So,
Scope it.
okay, awesome. We'll
Nice
get you
job.
guys, great work.
Thank you.
And thank you to the historic
Thank you, Matt.
team over there.
All right, workshop
Have a
session,
good night.
2023 best practices inventory. Anyone have anything before I ask for a motion? No, do I have a motion to accept as presented?
Motion to accept.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. We have a tree removal appeal for 251 Cambridge Avenue. Are those residents with us tonight? Well, no.
Sorry. Hold on. You guys all received a letter from our attorney.
Which one? You with the oak or the?
The pin oak in the front. I know you guys have spoken to you guys last year about the traffic issues on the street there. I'm still taking care of my folks. My father has Alzheimer's disease. My mother has some severe physical disabilities. We trimmed the tree. We took the sweet gum down in the backyard. with the hopes of saving it. We love the trees. My parents have owned the house since 1983. So we're willing to try and wait until next year and see if the trimming improves the acorn issue, but it's become a real safety issue. My father had a pretty bad fall, had to go to the hospital. We've had a couple of guests coming to the house having falls. The acorns are so out of control that we can't keep up with it. I mean, I've had to have my landscaper come 3 times a week. I have pictures, we had 4 inches at one point of acorns. It cracked the skylight in the backyard, in the back of the house. And so basically, we want to try and reserve the right. We'll give it a chance next fall and see if the trimming that we just did works. But if it doesn't, I mean, the tree's not more important than their safety. So we want to, reserve the right to be able to take it down.
So you're gonna do the trimming when?
We did the trimming already.
You already did, and then you want to see how it.
I want to see how it comes for next fall.
Okay.
And Bill Brooks and I spoke about it as well. He was in agreement with me. It may improve the acorn issue. It may not. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens next fall.
And the acorn issue is worse. I'm not asking if you're an expert on this, just because it got bigger.
Yeah, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And like I said, the tree's, pushing probably 70, 80 years old. And, it's just dropping so much debris that it's not manageable for them.
May I ask
Yeah,
Mr.
sure,
Brooks a question?
absolutely.
Bill, I realize oak trees, they do have cycles, and sometimes you get a lot of acorns, like a
That is
lot.
true.
And what is the normal rhythms of?
Well, it's been progressively getting, oh, you
We
probably don't.
have
Sorry.
a
Right.
CRISPR.
We're probably in the second year of an upcycle. We had a lot of acorns last year, the year before, not so many. This year, again, a lot of that is also relative to your weather.
Mhm.
We had a lot of drought last year, stressed them out real good. Had a lot more rain this year, so I think what we're seeing is results of last year's drought 2 years down the road.
Okay,
That's their way of ensuring their survival. One of the things that I did look into was seeing if it was possible to inoculate an oak tree so it would not bear fruit, much the same as you can do with some fruit bearing trees. It is not. I called Bartlett, I called Penn State, I called some of the guys in my industry that I work with, and we all had the same answer, no. They tell you how to do it. Everybody knows the little chains, the cadence that form on an oak in the spring and clog everybody's gutters that have it. You gotta pick them off by hand.
Mhm.
That'd be at least a 1-day operation with a very big bucket truck and a bill of about $4,000. That's not feasible. It just is not feasible. But this is a safety issue. Now, the municipality has some history with something akin to this, Church of the Nativity. They were gum trees. And everybody knows the lovely little sticky balls. And they had slip and falls by parishioners with, I know, one wrist for sure and one shoulder for sure, I believe it's more. And we did allow the church to remove the ones that were near the traffic areas, both pedestrian and vehicular. But they did do a very extensive replanting.
So to back to 251 Cambridge, thank you very much, Bill. Is there anything else you need to add?
I think what he is proposing is a worthy endeavor, and I think it's over and above, but we're talking about, as he said, we're talking about safety. My gut feeling is next year, we're gonna find out we have the same sort of problem, just not as bad, because we're gonna have the acorns. And it's like walking on marbles.
So there's.
Do you want to keep the tree? Like if it works out?
We'd love the tree.
You do want to?
Yeah, we're doing everything we can to try and save it, but again, what's paramount is my parents' safety over one tree.
That's not why I was asking.
Yeah.
What I was saying is if you really don't want to keep the tree, it's a safety issue. I'd rather get the new trees in the ground faster and wait. You get at least another year of growth, but if you want to keep the tree, I'm in support of that.
Sure.
If you want to wait the year to see.
I just would like to see what happens
Yeah.
with the effect of the trimming that we already did on it.
My question though is like, you put in a permit, how long is the permit request? So can we just put it on the calendar for next November or whatever for you? to Come back in and tell us what, tell us what the result is.
I'd be happy to look at it.
There's no additional permit fee, and then we make a decision on, obviously, if it continues to be a safety issue. Well, I can't speak for everyone. I would personally be in favor of allowing you to.
Yeah, again, that's all we're asking for. Like I said, we love the tree. If
It's a beautiful tree.
yeah, if it
I
can be
know that
improved,
tree.
we'll keep it, but.
In fact,
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
tree
that's fine.
expert, yeah, I love this idea.
Just
Just love a great education.
Very generous.
I think there's going to be a massive event where I just have a massive acorn drop.
Right, I've been watching them gradually get bigger and bigger
Yeah.
every year, because I moved back to take care of them during the pandemic from Long Branch.
Good stuff.
You,
Yeah.
just one other quick thing, right? So with Sherry with her recommendation, right, should we approve it? Would you be on board with planting 2 trees instead of 1?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. We're already, the sweet gum that came out in the backyard, I'm gonna put birch there in the spring, so. it's already come.
And it's 2-inch, right?
2
Rather than
2-inch vice,
4.
1 4-inch, because it's a 4-inch tree can be difficult to establish.
Yeah.
I think what the mayor's proposing is really worthwhile though.
Well, when he said he was willing to keep the tree to see, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Put it on pause till.
Put it on
can
pause,
say-
but he shouldn't
but
have to
it's
put another permit fee down.
Right.
Again,
There's no problem.
okay.
That's fine.
I do have a question.
That's fine.
I'm sorry. I just
Yeah,
wanted
no
to- Would we, so this is my thought process, Mayor. Why would we not try to, why would we not provide approval now? Is there no threat of anything falling off that tree? Separate from acorns, right? Let's just think for a second, that there's nothing beyond the acorns that would threaten the safety in the situation. Just trying to think it through.
It was trimmed already 2 weeks ago,
So
so
it's trimmed already, leaves are down
just about.
for the most
Yeah.
part. So there's nothing that could fall from the tree as I mean, from a natural act, right? Something falls,
Right.
but notwithstanding that, right? You're not gonna have rogue acorns or
No,
rogue
the
leaves
acorns are just
falling.
about done dropping. but-
Okay,
Yeah,
and you
I-
feel confident,
But he won't necessarily have the same price from the same vendor. I wanna know who's taking it down, when they're taking it down, safety in the neighborhood, so
100%
we're aware. That's why I'd like him to let us know
Yep.
when,
let us know
when he's
back
ready, when
here.
he's ready to go.
And
Yeah, I
I will
mean-
say, the other thing is you have such a beautiful oak and there are a lot of people who are losing oaks right now. And I know Bill could speak to this, but there's a terrible blight going around taking out our oaks.
Right.
And oaks are a keystone species in the canopy and ecosystem. It's a shame to see any oak though. However, I understand your reason for your
Sure.
request. But coming back next year would be great to even find out if your pinna is still healthy.
Yeah,
Great to
absolutely.
know.
So I'm fine with that. We can wait till next fall.
That's for this.
Cool.
So just real quick, from the borough attorney's perspective, because the letter that we got from the lawyer said, if we don't take any action, we're gonna be held accountable in the letter.
If someone was to get hurt.
Right,
So then maybe we do need to give approval now.
but that's why I'm coming
Right.
back to it, right? So the lawyer's letter says if his mom or dad gets hurt, they're gonna hold us accountable. So if it's in the last, as such, should an unfortunate yet reasonably foreseeable event arise where someone sustains an injury because of said conditions, we reserve the right to hold the borough accountable and will seek any and all appropriate legal remedies at such time. So does that put us in a rock and a hard place by having that on paper now? And
No, because we'd be tabling it.
Right.
but if,
We're not taking any, we're not denying it.
but if his mom or dad gets hurt by the tree now for some other reason and the can's open, are we liable based on the way this is?
Does his attorney know that he's willing to hold off to see what the trimming is?
Okay,
Because that's
Andrew,
in the minute.
do you think you should draft a letter tomorrow to his attorney, just saying that his client is willing to table it for 1 year's time?
That's fine with me.
Is that all right?
awesome. Thank you. I'm
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, like I said, we want to try and keep it. if we
Yeah.
can, but we can't.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Many years ago, people put netting on the trees at acorn with the acorns, and you would catch them before they get on the fence.
We gotta.
Can you put? No, the answer is no.
Either way, it's not a question and answer.
No.
Yeah.
It would not be feasible.
No.
There's only one thing.
Yes,
We have in the report from the tree expert from the town
right.
that she even went out of her way to suggest there's probably some folks who would come help you clean it up for some volunteer
Yeah,
hours.
no, Mark Olson reached out to me,
Ah.
trust me,
And maybe this
he
guy.
loves trees.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, they offered, but Tracy, if I may, it was literally the reality this year was, it was 3 to 4 cleanups a week we were doing. That's how many acorns were. It stopped the drainage in the street because the weed, I have pictures, the acorns, there was a probably 10 to 12 inch high pile running the entire curb line, the water couldn't get through. That's how many acorns.
That tree's desperate to live on.
Yeah, for sure.
And to your point,
that particular species is the one that is proven to be most susceptible to bacterial resource, unfortunately. It is a penalty.
I hope it's.
It does show no signs of it at this point.
Great to hear.
I'm gonna reverse my advice. Take action today. And then I don't need to draft a letter. Not, no, but to be honest, I mean, for us to even have the mere potential of any liability, because Michael, you said? Colin, yeah. He can't speak on behalf, he doesn't have power of attorney, and he's not the attorney of record. So make the rule on this appeal, please.
All right, you want me to make a motion?
Please,
You want to. No one's forcing you to do it.
In the approval letter, Christie can state. In the approval letter, Christie can state your appeal's been approved.
Okay.
It's our understanding you're willing to wait till fall, but if something should happen.
please let the borough know.
100%.
And then we'll schedule you for November.
Yeah, that's great. Do I do that now to schedule for next year or?
If we approve, we don't have to.
I'll make a motion.
Well, they wanted me to come back to give the input on how the tree goes.
I'll make,
If the input is negative,
Then come back.
let us know. Okay,
I will,
if the input's positive, I think we still wanna know though.
Yeah, well,
Just let us know.
I corresponded with Drew about the traffic stuff still going on over there, so I can always.
I will make a motion to approve the appeal. Having Christie write it in the manner of what we talked about today, and the good faith and all the stuff that exists. If they deviate, let us know.
And for two is it
Two inchers.
two inch.
And with a report back next November.
With a report back, yeah.
Can we add one thing? I would like to amend the motion to say, with the understanding it's your intention to
Yeah.
hopefully keep the tree.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which
awesome.
yes,
Yes, that, all of that is the motion,
all right.
which is recorded.
Thank you for following the permit.
I-
process.
I had it done, yeah.
Thank
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Oh,
All right,
Thank
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Okay, moving along, we have a tree removal appeal for 21 Poplar.
Yes.
First meeting,
First meeting,
they're always like this.
Yeah.
a lot of concerned citizens, so I think we found the right town.
Yeah.
We've been in Fairhaven for about a month. Welcome, so, yeah, we live on 21 Poplar, right behind Norwood Middle School. Really coming in today for a safety concern. We've got a 75-foot tree, a maple tree that's around 10 feet from our home. We've got a baby on the way. It's in very close proximity to the home. The tree is 21 feet from the neighbor's home. It's 32 feet from the sidewalk. There's a lot of kids, a lot of people walking the dog. There's a lot of traffic. I am not as passionate about keeping this tree as the individual before me. I am extremely concerned about the tree. And, you know, that's what's brought us here today. It's, you know, safety aside, which really is the main reason, there are roots that are growing towards the foundation. It's a huge tree. There's a lot of animals and things crawling onto the roof. I want to echo again that I am incredibly concerned about the size of this tree and how close it is to our house.
What's the diameter of this tree?
The tree is 11 feet in diameter.
11 feet?
Hold on,
I don't
11
think
feet
it
is
was anywhere but
11
this
feet,
field.
11 feet is circumference around,
Oh, the circumference.
yes.
Well, I'm very impressed that you've only been here a month and you know about our tree ordinance.
Yeah, seriously.
Because we have residents who've lived here for years and
32.
It was the first thing the inspector told us when we bought the house, that that tree was just not safe. The roots are growing underneath our house, it could affect our foundation, things like that. Our house is 1912, you know, we
So-
want it to stay.
As someone that, when I moved in 2010, I had a 6-month-old. I remember the feeling, I had a giant tree in the backyard. there was a second giant tree in the corner of my property. And I had the one tree was approved to be taken down, the one in the corner, I was told couldn't be taken down, it was in good shape, and then Hurricane Sandy landed on my house. I can certainly appreciate where you're coming from, and the one thing that I'll point out is at the time when that tree came down, I planted another tree that was, I mean, you know, probably smaller than where this desk is. And everyone made fun of it. They called it the Charlie Brown tree. And, you know, now I'm looking up, you know, it's 3-4 times the size of me. So, you know, I certainly, based on the report that Shari wrote here and the condition of this type of tree and how soft the wood is, it sounds like, I'm personally in favor of this, as long as they're getting the 2 new trees in the ground to replace.
I just want to thank you both for being here. This is the type of discussion that should happen, right, following the process. When you do you don't know issues, obviously the recommendation to place 2 new trees, right? I can't require it, but I just kind of suggest really think through, maybe work through borough resources or someone just to help you guide where the new tree should be planted. So in, you know, 50 to 70 years, you know, when we're all long and gone, that there's not a similar problem, but thank you for coming and welcome to the town.
Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Just before you do, the Shade Tree Commission has tons of resources, especially when it comes to selecting native species to plant and getting some guidance about. I'm sure you already seem to have a feel for where you might want the trees and not want the trees. So I noticed Bradford pears are on here. I'd suggest that you look at the Shade Tree Commission's native plants. All you do is go on the website. And it's very user friendly. You just scroll through as the tree, a little description, you'll know what's going to be at maturity and what it looks like in the fall versus winter. And it's very helpful and super easy to use. And let me know if you need help with that. Somebody will put you in touch.
I do have an off-topic question that's not about trees. On like our portion of the sidewalk in our front yard is like one of the trees definitely ripped up. And so the sidewalk is like this. Who do we contact about fixing that? Is that our property? Is that borough property? Like what, how does that work?
If you could take a picture,
Okay,
send it to Tracy and I, and we'll get an answer back here.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Welcome to Fairhaven.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And I will second your motion.
Thank you. That's it.
All in favor?
Bye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right.
Christie will send you a letter, guys.
Next up, request from Fairhaven businesses to post lawn signs advertising ladies' night out. 11/26 to 12/1. Anyone have anything on this?
Any conflict with the signs for the,
They kind of factored that into their request. They
Perfect.
seem to know what's before and after.
no issues?
And I checked
Correct.
I checked
Yep.
my
You guys doing great.
little log.
I'm in full support there. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. We have a request from the beautification committee to hang a holiday banner 4 feet by 10 feet at Fairhaven's entrance. I assume that's over by the pond. Is it coming down? Anyone have anything on this?
Well, have you considered something more long-term? Like
It is long-term.
this is a vinyl banner?
Yes.
Overton vinyl banner?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could talk about we'll talk about some things offline. Okay.
That's a silly question. It will have like those cutouts, so like wind goes through and it doesn't,
So it's not gonna,
it's just a, yeah,
just like Dermer Dreams, very, very similar.
got it.
And what is the message again?
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays from the
Yes.
business district
Yes.
or from Fairhaven?
Shop local, happy holidays. Susan, you have it. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the beautification committee's banner.
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. 2024 brush and leaf schedule.
Awesome. I'm gonna send 2 pieces of paper around. They're sample evergreen cans. So I'll provide some context and background of what is before you. So this are ordinance components that align with the proposed updates to how Fairhaven handles brush and leaf. It centralizes definitions, responsibilities, pickup times, enforcement, and it talks about the green can. On the green can itself, there's some things we need to talk through. So the first piece is the type of green can, and because the enforcement will specifically have to hone in on wrong can, wrong height, like the wrong type of material being put in, and we've been having conversations with DPW and code enforcement on this. We've gotten feedback from both code enforcement and from DPW on this. But we have to talk through the can. Initial conversations with Fairhaven Hardware, they are willing to support whatever we need. Order form, procuring can, likely delivery of it. The initial discussion that I think that we've had and it has been finalized is homeowners can opt into the green can, meaning they're responsible for the green can. They work through Fairhaven Hardware to purchase it. There's no limit on the green can. But Fairhaven Hardware is 100% on board. Pending the feedback from today, we would take what code enforcement came back with, what DPW came back with, and DPW's primary comments were centered around yard waste and the location from a practicality of where the can should be. If you recall, the alignment is with other utilities, specifically garbage. So garbage, you know, and as we look in June when our trash contract is up and potentially shift into whole one-day pickup for garbage, having cans out only on one day of the week when it comes to trash and brush. If you recall, the way the schedule will be is January would be Christmas tree pickup. April would be spring cleanup. Then you have brush twice a month, which is a double increase from what we're doing now. In the fall, you have your fall cleanout in October, and then it'll roll into 4 pickups for every zone, because we're getting rid of zones A, B, and C. 4 pickups for every zone 1, 2, 3, 4, which is doubling the leaf pickup compared to this today. So it does it in a cost neutral manner, increases the services twofold in between the bookend months and the fall pickup. What will happen is we take all the feedback, any additional feedback here, work with Andrew to put together an ordinance to introduce at the next meeting, approve in December, and then work with Fairhaven Hardware Communications, the town, January, February, March to prepare for the spring cleanout in April, and then ultimately when brush can pickup season would begin in May. So the other thing that it streamlined to do, so I had the pleasure of doing some light reading this weekend and read through every ordinance that Fairhaven has. And what this seeks to do, and I'll work really closely with Andrew. I did. I read through the book. That's awesome.
Like our code book?
The entire code book. And what this seeks to do
Speed reading, I think.
is to ensure that it's a one-stop shop. So we have to figure out legally how this evolves into an ordinance. And I mean, there's ordinances going 2011-08, 2010-27, 2015-11, you'll see in there, specific sections. So it's meant to be a one-stop shop and ensure anything from before that makes sense is still in here. Anything that from before that doesn't make sense does not make it in here. And folks can effectively reference what previous ordinances and sections are being updated and or modified and or changed.
I have some questions.
Please.
Hurry up.
The trash can, I don't understand.
You got this, but
The trash can, do they have wheels?
Negative.
Well, that's hard.
It-
That's bad. That's, you know, that's. If I'm collecting waste in the back of my house, I'm not dragging that trash can to the curb.
Okay.
And if it's filled with material, it can be pretty heavy.
Do they make cans that size that have 2 smaller wheels? Like are they only the square ones that are on the wheels?
I don't know that answer, but if we found a solution with the green can, because the size is important because we don't want it to be too much weight, because then the team can't pick it up. But if we found an equivalent size that would be accommodating, I'm gonna say, to certain sizes of garage, but I could tilt, right, put on wheels like our garbage cans, would that be a much better option?
I want it to come with. Yes.
Check.
We have like our blue cans come in large and small.
I like where your head's at, I think.
They do have, I'm looking at like a Rubbermaid
Okay.
32-gallon with wheels. Not saying that has to be a
Right.
one, there's smaller
Right,
ones.
but you can get,
There's a Rubbermaid, they make it. And that's 32-gallon, right?
Yeah. I think the Fairhaven hardware would be more than happy to work with us on that. I think that raises.
And it's in the price range that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not,
I'm not gonna come out with costs yet. You guys saw the unit costs on here. Because I don't wanna speak until an actual can is set, and Fairhaven Hardware said they were good residents, like a really good deal.
this is my biggest question, you probably already know that,
Yep.
I'm voicing it out loud. This is something where I do think enforcement is important as far as. My concern is that people start putting out whatever can they have lying around.
Yep.
And, you know, you hope there's not a lot of those cans out there because we have a uniform garbage that everyone's using, so they
Yeah.
shouldn't have those cans. But it is my concern that they go to a Home Depot and they see that, you know, there's another can that's $15 and they don't wanna spend the $30 on the can we have. And then we have this eclectic mix of, you know, of a garbage apocalypse all around town. That just isn't, I don't think it's the aesthetic, so my question is, are we willing to commit to enforcement of? One of two things, either if you put it in the garbage can, they just don't pick it up. You're not getting it picked up and you learn the lesson that way, or is there a fine attached? And I don't like fining our residents, but also the need, if we're not gonna hand out one of these garbage cans to every resident. We also need to set a standard that if you're gonna use this service, you need to follow it with that look.
So this is,
Can Fairhaven Hardware stencil, if they're delivering, can they stencil something?
what do you mean stencil?
I don't think they would, oh, you think they would do this, and I think the
Or a
manufacturer would do the
single
stencil on the bigger order.
Yeah, we could, it just depends how much cost we want to
Because that
incur.
would eliminate the
It would, so.
Home Depot cans.
But isn't there like manufacturers stenciling the ones that we all have at our houses, the recyclings, it's not,
That was, we paid for that to be.
but the manufacturer embosses it or stencils it and sends it.
They're gonna cast the mold.
Right, I don't think it's Fairhaven Hardware, that's what I'm saying, they're not getting a blank garbage can and then stenciling on their own, are they?
no,
Can we ask them to do that?
it won't last.
I don't think they're gonna do it.
I can't answer.
We can ask anything.
I think it's a great question and I will inquire when I talk about the lease. I just want to answer your question though, right? So as the brush and leaf discuss the process, right? The brush and leaf issue with how much stuff is on our streets is pervasive. Right? There's no adherence whatsoever. In our discussions between communication, because there's a huge educational component, code enforcement, because we have to have a standard and keep to it there. And DPW, there needs to be even further communication between DPW and code enforcement. Because whether or not they pick up material in a wrong can, it depends. What if the can is, you know, there's 40 cans and they're in the middle of the street? You know, it depends. But taking pictures, following up with a fine, yeah. And I think there is gonna be some heartburn. Luckily, if this goes through and we approve it by the end of the year, we have 4 months to communicate. But there's gonna be some heartburn there's no doubt about it. We had 200, how many notices for zone A after it was picked up? 251 notices went out, just in one zone, right? So just to give you an idea of how many people are already out of compliance. And in fairness to our residents, you know, the education, the communication piece, the amount of services, right? We're gonna improve all of those and just ask that they follow the process. But enforcement is key.
Can I just ask a few clarification questions, because I just want to make sure I remember correctly? How many times will these be picked up during the week?
Twice a month,
Twice a month?
so think every other week.
Okay,
In between the bookends of cleanup, right? So in between spring clean out and fall clean out, twice a month.
twice a month.
And then leaves for the 4 times are just placed on the curb like normally. If you want to put it in here, fine, go ahead, we'll take it, but. This is specifically to put brush,
Right, and you said people can have many or
as many as they want.
cans as they want.
And we built it off of what other towns have done successfully.
Okay.
That was part of the research. There were 12 towns, 13 towns that we looked at with what they do and what their schedules are, how they align to other utilities. So it was trying to take kind of best practices, but apply the Fairhaven way to it, because we're not one of those other towns for Fairhaven.
No, fine, the reason I wanted to clarify the frequency is because I don't know even if we have all green cans and they're all the same, it's gonna look really nice if there's an excessive amount of these cans outside of homes, but since it's only like twice a month, I think that's probably okay. If it was more frequent, I would be more concerned about sort of like, driving by and seeing, we have, the trash cans, and then we have the recycling cans, and then we have this. There's always essentially what looks like a trash can outside.
And the intent with this is that pickup is on Tuesdays. And the intent is that when we go to renegotiate our trash contract, there's been some discussion if we can do a 1-day pickup for the whole town,
Okay.
do it on Tuesday. Right, because right now cans are on the street 3 days a week, not summertime or whatever the month is, and then 5 days a week in the summer. So we could potentially cut that down by 2.
Yeah, that would be great, because I think having that visual frequency of the cans out is, they would add to that quality.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's a great idea.
Okay.
I still.
I know you have a couple more questions after the list.
So
Sorry, guys.
oh gosh, you mentioned that people could put leaves in the green can,
After fall clean out, yes.
because here it says no leaves or yard waste are to be put into the approved container.
It's one of the pieces of feedback I got from DPW.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that will be changed.
Yeah, they can put leaves.
Okay, and also I'm a little bit leafy clippings from hedges, that's considered, I mean, I'm serious.
I know.
Like, people are gonna have a problem unless we educate our residents very clearly. Like, to me, a leafy clipping, if I was, that would be brush. I would just throw that in the can, but here, it's considered yard waste. You know what I'm saying?
Understood.
I think that can be, or shrub clippings. To me, that's brush.
Okay.
And then my last question. Storage for these containers. Now, I believe we have an ordinance against putting our blue and black cans where they can be seen from the street.
Correct.
Now we're asking residents not only to camouflage 2 cans, now should they opt for the 3rd can, that's a lot of storage. And that could be problematic for some people.
Totally. I don't have a good answer. What I will articulate is that not everybody will choose to opt in. We don't know how many people will opt in. When we pulled the brush and leaf committee, there were those that do their own, and there were people that have landscapers, there were people that do their own and wouldn't use this. To me, it's very similar to if residents want to acquire an extra garbage can, which they can, or an extra recycling can and have to store it. I don't know how it's going to pan out. We might roll this out next year and it might completely flop, and we might go back to the drawing board and say, you know what, like, there's good intentions, but it didn't work. So our intent for the brush and leaf committee in 2024 is to track the data with it and track the anecdotes and hopefully see if that is the true, it's a risk right now, we don't know if it'll become an issue.
But that needs to be included in the education that those cans cannot be seen from the street.
Per the other ordinance, yeah, that's a really good point, I didn't think of that. What else you got?
That's it.
Awesome. I will follow up with Fairhaven Hardware this week on the wheels, the seal.
Oh, I do have one more thing. How about, like, community grants, green grants? Are there any types of grants that you're aware of that would help offset the cost of these cans for our residents?
Not that
I looked into that. We cannot use clean communities for giving garbage cans to private citizens. They have to be on public property. And I will say, I do apologize. I know I've been out sick, and I did, read this over, and I've read the input from code enforcement and from Rich's department. I do think, Drew, we're gonna have to set up a meeting to go through this. This is a very good first start. But I think there's, in order to get it into a ordinance format for introduction on the 27th. I'm not gonna put words in Attorney Sobel's mouth, but that could be potentially a tall order. But I think the important thing is, and I spoke to Betty Ann about this today, is that we're solid on the schedule. The governing body is solid in the fact that we can get the schedule, the spring cleanup, the fall cleanup, the cans in the middle, and the leaf pickup onto the borough calendar, which is the most important thing that needs to be done in November. Because the enforcement piece of this, although I'd certainly like to get introduced and adopted prior to year's end, if we don't do that, we won't be worried about it. We could certainly do it the first meeting in January and adopt it in February if worse came to worse.
It's fair. The only thing Fairhaven Hardware was concerned with was supply chain and having enough time. So the sooner we know that we're gonna go this and how many residents we have, the sooner they'll be able to prepare for the supply chain. 100% with you on the practicality of it. Let's set up the internal call, and if it's not ready for the 27th, but we can work together and figure out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a pretty tall task.
I know you're.
I've been thinking about this a hot minute, and for big picture, this is a good thing. I want to keep as much out of our storm drains as we can, and this does that. In fact, we're also delivering additional services with this model is phenomenal. I think our residents will really like this. The obstacles, if you will, or speed bumps, I think yes, we're going to need enforcement, and we're going to make it really easy for people to get the cans and stuff like that. But it's not going to be easy for them to understand how to do this the right way. Some people know about it. You're sitting in the room, I bet you're still not exactly clear what's going to happen. So even people who are tracking it a little bit, there's a big blind spot. So all I'm getting at is the need for communication. It's a little bit more robust. Like I engaged the Environmental Commission on this. They love it, the concept and what's being proposed. Or going to be implemented, because that's why I presented it. They're going to help a little bit from a social media standpoint, discerning on vegetative waste versus brush. But even that it's my assessment that I think we're going to need to spend a little bit of money on the communications and education piece. I think if we don't do it, we're going to end up with a big hammer from enforcement, and it's going to just create a negative response to what probably is a really good plan. So by a little bit of money, I can't even imagine what that means at the moment, but I think this is probably warrants a dedicated mailer, probably a full color story that's very graphic and very visual, so people can understand, start, stop, what happens, what's it look like. People need pictures. I mean, even if I understand this intimately, I know how helpful it is going to be to see it in a picture form.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be able to tell my family, right? Because it's one thing for one person to open up, but everybody in the family's got to understand it. So can we just dog ear this and know that from a communication education standpoint, if we really want to roll this out, we might need to spend a little bit of money on telling the story.
I love the mailer idea. I love the global communication. I want to be inviting to residents as opposed to telling them. And,
exactly.
We've recognized sometimes there are gaps, right, with what digital touch points or physical touch points people need to be aware of what's going on. So 100% on board. I think we made that part of this, right? So as we start on this process and this journey now, we will do it in mind of that invitation, right, to educate about this. I think it's great. I'm 100% on board.
Okay, hopefully outreach can come back with something.
Whatever you need from me, information, you just let me know.
We're gonna need a lot.
Yeah.
Going.
No, I'm not going anywhere. Thank you, everybody.
We're good here. All right, moving along, dock use, fishing and crabbing. I know we touched on this some earlier in the evening. I don't know if anyone has any questions as to where we're at right now.
Just one question.
Yep.
I'm 100% on board where we are, what we're trying to do, right? That it's an evolving document, et cetera, et cetera. My only question is when the sun sets at 4:30 on when's the winter solstice, December 21st. When it sets on that, the way it is, technically somebody could fish or crab, and not saying you're gonna catch any fish or catch any crab, but technically you can fish and crab until 9 o'clock.
The feedback that I got, this week, talking with the chief, talking with people that I guess crab, is it gets this time of year, and that's when it gets that solstice that you're talking about, with the earlier sunset, and people stop crabbing in general. That time is, and I know we say fishing and crabbing, but it's crabbing that's really drawing the majority of the people that are down there. Also, we thought that it would be very beneficial to match up, and listen, I guess we could change both, but to match up the parking times with the dock
I didn't think
times.
about that. Okay.
As well, so, that's where it's coming from, I mean, if this. You know, we could do two separate times, we could do October to March, and then March, to September type thing, but now you deal with a lot of information on a sign. That might start be hard for people to digest from a parking standpoint.
Here's the reason.
I just think we can always pivot.
Totally, 100%, I'm on board then, I'm good starting with this, I wanted, and Chief, back me up here, right? The police.
Chief, back me up.
I wanna make sure I'm not gonna say anything that's incorrect. The police can't enforce something unless it's in law, right? Like, unless it exists. So I guess what I wanna ask is, by having the times the way we are we handcuffing our police from being able to enforce to the fullest extent that we are looking for here with the restriction? That's what I'm trying to get at, right? Like, if we didn't put coolers on there, you couldn't go down there and tell people to get rid of the coolers, right?
Correct.
You
If
need,
if you have the ordinance, then you're violating the ordinance, your ordinance, correct?
Right.
That's why the times, like, really, like, I said, the problem generally having is, August, September.
It's fair.
It may go a little later, but generally, by the time the time changes, there's really nobody down there, so that's why we just said it was sunset, when it's sunset, what time we just make it, set.
check. I just wanna make sure you guys are positioned to.
Yeah, I think it's that time actually easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it's sunset, when it's not.
I think it's pretty clear.
Thank you, sir. I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
So one thing, because similar thought, I wanted to make sure we do what is most enforceable, but also signs on our parks basically say closed from dusk to dawn. And I don't see any disadvantage to also having that posted down at the dock.
The issue that we're discussing just now is we're trying to,
Well, I'm saying do both,
you're saying have the parking from 8 to.
the sign at the dock.
I know, but what I'm saying is if the dock has different hours. It makes it a little bit harder, I think that's what we're talking about, for your force to.
So wait, I didn't say that,
So now,
I didn't explain.
If it's 8 to 9, if it's 8 to 9 every day, for instance, they're rolling through that neighborhood, they're not checking their Google to see what time sunset is. It's just a little bit cleaner as far as,
I'm in favor of that. I didn't mean to cut you off. I've been consistent about wanting the hours because we want our PD to be able
Right.
to be clear about enforcement.
So you're saying the dock,
I'm wondering if there's some advantage to also having a sign that says that's like all of our other parks, it's closed.
oh, we're gonna have a sign at the dock that says the hours.
Because it'll catch all the other things.
My only question here, which is a question for the chief, which I don't think I've even worked through, is the dock closed outside 8 to 9, or is it just no fishing crabbing?
We were talking about no.
I think it was just no fishing crabbing. Outside of it.
We didn't really have hours for the dock.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you said, it closes at, like you said, the park closes at dusk or dark, it just also limits residents.
Well,
You go
except
down there after-
only if you go down there and chase them off. I
Yeah,
mean,
but you can't, that's the thing,
Yeah.
you have the ordinance,
Yeah.
then you have to enforce the bureau and not.
Chris, I understand what you're talking about.
That's what we're trying to make it a little bit longer, so. Generally,
This is the old, this isn't, yeah, it's gonna be updated for the next meeting. Right? And you have all the information, yes, be
about
updated for the next
permanent
meeting.
section, okay, is that what you guys are just covering?
All the things that I mentioned before are gonna be placed in that ordinance. I'm sure we'll dial down on them. And if you, again, if you think of other things that you think should be in there, or you receive feedback from the public, let me know so that.
So is section 9-6.2
Where am I
going
looking?
to remain?
We're not doing any permitting, we're not allowed to.
That's not my understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, Mayor, right, just, we implement it, and then we'll have data starting next summer. Right?
You should have data as soon as the spring, but yes, you'll get a lot more data during the summer when that's the majority of the issues that we're seeing.
And is there anything we can do proactively before that to prepare for that? Do we put a camera up down at the dock, like permanent camera? Are there other things that we?
I'm not sure about a permanent camera, but as I mentioned, the chief has committed that we're gonna have active enforcement there starting in the spring.
Love it. All right.
And there's, I mean, ultimately, there's enforcement right now, from 24/7 camera.
Yeah.
Right now and control.
Also,
Okay, we are at the public comment on agenda items only portion of the meeting. This is only for agenda items. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Yes.
It is that tree ordinance, the tree, cutting down the trees.
That was on, yes, that was an agenda.
My name is Maria Shrino, I'm 22 Poplar. I just have a comment. That gentleman whose parents, he was worried, that was, a great, I don't know him, but I do know that young couple who worked full-time and she's 7 months pregnant. They both sat here and waited through a very long meeting to ask for their tree, to be reversed, their ruling. I'm asking you guys to enforce those who don't do that. And who break the law, just like if I have 6 DWIs, what will you all say? I'm going to lose my license.
True.
Right. If I cut down trees and I don't do what they do, you should not be able to apply for a permit again. Why are we rewarding people? And most of the time, it's builders that come in, they knock down trees without permits. Now, this young couple sat there with the house across the street from them. The builder knocked down 2 trees without a permit. You guys know it because I called you and I called the council and they admitted they did not receive their permit yet and those trees were cut down. That builder bought that property for $800,000. He is selling the home for 2.25 million. Do you think he's worried about a fine? Let me speak. The fine, I don't know what the fine is. Can you tell me what the fine is for cutting down a tree without a permit?
So off the top of my head, I don't have that information,
Okay,
but
500, let's say 1,000.
Maria, I can answer your whole question now if you want me to.
I'm saying, if that person who defied, he knows the rules. This couple have been here 1 month. They're a young couple. They figured out the rules. They knew the right thing to do. The builder next door to me, I don't even know who he is, but he knows the rules. He builds many houses in Fairhaven. He should be penalized for doing that.
Yeah.
He should not be able to apply for a building permit because just like if the Fairhaven gives me 4 DWIs, the state of New Jersey is not going to give me a driver's license. We should not give him a building permit because he did not follow the rules on 2 properties that he's building in Fairhaven. How about we have that law now? Would you, I know you're very, Tracy, you're very into the trees. Why don't we do an ordinance that says, if you get a fine, does anybody here agree with me? If you get a fine, that you are not allowed to apply for a permit for a year or 6 months.
So Maria, I wasn't trying to interrupt you, but I think I sort of have the answer you're looking for. So the ordinance that's set right now is probably so old that I'm not sure there was as much construction in the borough as there is right now going on. It's very antiquated. And I'm gonna.
We've been fighting, I can bring all my neighbors, we've been fighting these trees on my block for years. House people that don't even.
Understood, but we've put a lot of work this year into a new tree ordinance, primarily Councilman Cole. Others have also been involved with it. I put it on pause about 2 months ago. I had some concerns with it. I am very confident that in the new year in 2024, we are going to have a brand new tree ordinance. We will take your feedback into consideration.
I don't care about the tree ordinance. Do you need a permit to cut down a tree in Fairhaven?
It depends on the size of the tree.
The size of this family's tree.
That's why they were here, for an appeal. Yeah.
So I am saying, if you break the law, let's have it. I don't care if you make the tree ordinance.
I understand,
That the tree-
that would be part of the new ordinance.
Why don't we do that now? Why do we need a new tree ordinance? Why don't we say right now, make whatever you call an addendum or make something that says, don't stop me.
Well, you've had your 3 minutes. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop you because we have a lot of business going on right now in the borough. And we're working on an all-encompassing tree ordinance that will be a part of. And that's the
I don't know
reason.
anything about this park at the dog dock. Neither did this couple, but they sat through that.
I understand that.
After.
They did it the right way. They got their appeal.
You don't know that they work full-time, they came straight here, I know them, I'm friends with them. So they did the right thing, they sat through that whole conversation that they knew nothing about. So why can't you sit through my 2-minute rant and say, do you think it's a good idea to do that?
But it's not a question, but it's not a question and answer session, Maria. It's not, that's not how it's public comment. It's public comment. You've made your public comment.
Do that, would you please vote on
We've
that?
heard you.
I've got a note. And when the mayor's ready for us to take up the ordinance, this will be captured for consideration. We'll run it through the attorneys, because
My comment is, I'm glad you do that today.
You're making it seem as if they weren't penalized,
And
which is not true.
What's that?
You're making it seem as if the company that did this was not penalized for their illegal tree cutting, which is not true.
But money doesn't bother people, money doesn't.
Okay, but that's our,
Selling the 2.2.
that's our current ordinance. Until we pass a new ordinance, that's the way it is gonna be.
Would you consider putting that in the ordinance that if you make a
Yes,
violation that?
absolutely. We're gonna consider everything.
By the way, he's smiling, so what do you think so? You're smirking.
are you smiling forever?
I'm a happy man.
No, you're smirking, he had to.
Honestly, I don't think that would pass muster. I think it's
It's unrealistic.
that's just my opinion right now,
Why would it be unrealistic?
because it's unfair. It's
Why is
unfair
it?
punishment. That you would preclude people from operating a business by building for removing a tree. I
No, we're
don't,
breaking the law. Why do we have the ordinance?
I understand.
He's talking about the penalty you suggest.
So how about so you agree that maybe New Jersey should have a rule that if I'm drunk and driving, or if I look at the stop sign or I cheat, just fine me money. So if I'm a billionaire, it doesn't matter to me.
but that's not fair.
Why?
Because if you're driving drunk, you could kill someone. You cut down a tree that maybe is an inch bigger in caliber.
It wasn't an inch, and.
I understand.
They're not taking any care about the town.
Right.
So I live in this town a long time, 27 years. I'm worried about the town. All the trees were cut down on my street without permits. And you know what they do? Ask any builder. I'm a real estate agent. The builders tell me the same thing. They will knock down the trees, and not like this young couple that are gonna build the trees. They put in a $5 stick tree, and then they sell the house and the people rip it out because you don't need a permit for that.
I understand.
So that's my comment. I hope that you do something about it. I hope that you both do something about it.
I think we've been pretty consistent. This governing body specifically was saying we're gonna do things and following through on them. I've just said, I'm very confident that in 2024, we're gonna have a new tree ordinance. Whether it includes exactly what you just said, that I can't promise, because we need to put together an all-encompassing tree ordinance that not only makes sense for Fairhaven, passes legal muster as well. But what I'm saying is, I hear you, I hear the frustration, and we've had this discussion before. And I want to make it clear, when someone has broken the law in Fairhaven, we've addressed it. There's no free passes here. There are not. We don't operate that way. So I don't want you to make the assumption that just because you don't hear about something, it doesn't mean that they didn't get a summons.
If I didn't call, nobody would know about it.
You might be right, but unfortunately, that's a lot of what goes on around Fairhaven. There's a lot of people that speed and you don't find out about it.
Well,
It's just a part of life.
And I call about people who break the ordinance for idling, but you told me that you won't get involved in that. with
That's not
idling
true.
On the street, you said, I'm not gonna tell the police
Maria,
chief what to do.
I said, I don't tell them how to actually police on the streets. When you called me about what's going on outside your house to formally answer you, I told the chief about it. He sent people over to make sure they weren't idling.
But they idle every single day.
That's a different discussion, though. To say that we're not addressing, that I'm not addressing the problem.
The agenda, so I could speak about it. Because there's signs up, I didn't know about like.
You can come to any meeting and talk on the good of the borough, any single meeting that you
Well, you
want.
said I have to talk about agenda items. So that's,
Right.
of course.
So they can send them a-
And that's what we're in on.
Yeah.
I just want to hear me say that we will explore the appropriate penalty for those who disregard the law and cut down trees that are protected under the ordinance.
The penalties are much
Proper
greater in the
penalty.
new ordinance. They are.
It might not be stopping their right to run their business, but it will be an appropriate
I don't think
penalty.
people should be, but I
Yeah,
don't think
just
builders, my friends are builders, I don't think, but they follow the law. My friends are homeowners, they follow the law. You know,
Yeah.
people are following the law, they shouldn't be rewarded, we should all follow the law.
So real quick, I can give you another data point too. One thing that we dialed in with the brush and leaf was that people don't care about the money, they care about their time. So one way that we made time a part of the penalty was to require a court appearance, right? Because when you start taking people's time up, time is money. So that's something that we identified before in the past, and I can already see Tracy writing right now, like we will.
By putting like the wrong brush out at the wrong time, that.
Well, the conversation came is people would say, just find me $150, I don't care if my stuff is out on the street. Because people don't care about money, but they care if you have to spend 8 hours in court. So there are other levers we can pull to make the consequence for not following the ordinance have a greater impact on the business, such as time, right, is another lever that we can pull. So it's not the first time we've come up against where money really isn't an object, I'm gonna say that. And we've already brainstormed and put into practice, and I'm going to put in practice other ways to make it not an advantage where somebody just says, I'll take the $150 fine, I don't care. So I offer that as well.
Okay.
Anyone else in the public for agenda items? Come up, sir. Please state your name, address, and record.
Speaking this late at night.
That's all right.
My name's Steve Crowder, 32 Fisk Street, right across the street from the police station. These guys look like they're doing a really nice job right now. But forest from the trees, you had a discussion about the Bicentennial Hall. And the Bicentennial Hall is the tree, the forest is its chapel. And I just moved in with myself and my wife about 5 months ago in May. And one of the first things I discovered as I learned about this chapel, I have a lot of interest in African-American history. But when I look at the chapel, first of all, some of the things I learned about it is that the history of that chapel parallels Fairhaven, but quite a bit before Fairhaven. And you can follow history, you can follow demographics, you can see the economics of Fairhaven, also in what happened with the African-American community here. But then it's a gem. I think we're missing something here by not treating it like a gem, because when you look at it, it's peeling away. The roof is falling apart. There's a beautiful circular
Stained glass.
stained glass window at the top. It looks like it's going to fall out.
Mhm.
And usually when I hear it's referenced, it's always Bicentennial Hall, and I understand it was at the Bicentennial, but the importance of that building is not because it's called Bicentennial Hall, it's because it's Fisk Chapel and all this really is behind it. So, and I've been to the Historic Commission, and I understand that they have really no authority over that. And I've talked with the people in the Historic Association, and they're very passionate about it. They have a garden party and they raised $50,000. So there's other people who really care about that building. But what I also haven't seen is that anybody's really responsible for the plan. So it's good that we worked on the ADA, that you're getting that done with a grant. But I've asked everyone, is there a plan? And I just would like to implore you, so particularly the council. And I know I met Tracy at the last meeting of the commission, and she said she's working on it. I said, but who's responsible? Since you have the deed, which I didn't realize till later, you own the building, so you're responsible for the building. Who's responsible? And she said, we as the council are. That was a nice answer, but I wonder if a person could be accountable for putting together a plan for that building that takes into consideration not just the facility, but maybe pulls in the Historic Association and say, what's the plan for education, things of that sort. That doesn't mean that the borough has to pay for that stuff, or at least the educational part of it. But perhaps the borough would be more assertive about getting that in shape, maybe before the police station is finished. But there's a whole lot to do there. there's a whole lot of potential for particularly middle-aged and high school children in this community and learn some history and learn something about what's going on in this, good things that are going on in this community, but how it's progressed and how we got to where we are. Because I learned that I lived in what was a black neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like 30 or 40 years ago, I guess. So that's a great asset you have. But it's really being wasted, and it's not it shouldn't be a meeting building. If you just needed a meeting building, maybe you had the community hall that's being put up. But that should be looked at in a different way. And I think even when people reference it, the Fisk Bicentennial Hall, and as it gets refurbished, some signage that makes it appropriate, and then some more historical stuff that goes inside. There's a lot that can be done there, and right now it's really it's an eyesore.
I
People
think-
driving into the community, they look at that building and think, what is it? And in fact, there's a new house that was just put up. It's not selling. Because
I actually think that house looks nice. I don't think it's an eyesore. That's the only thing you've said so far that I disagree with. Even with its blemishes, I think it's a beautiful building. Even when I drive by.
It's a beautiful building, but it's
Needs some love.
it's not being taken care of.
I think,
And so maybe it's just a little bit of a stain on us for not taking care of it and presenting it as the way it should be. I take that back.
Do you have just, I'm sorry to go off, do you have interest in serving on like the historic commission?
you're gonna get an.
On the Historic Commission, I've been to a couple meetings, they seem to have nothing to do with that. I have interest in.
That's not why I'm asking. I feel.
I know,
like-
I have interest in helping whomever it is with strategy for making that what it can be in the community and representing what it really can be. But I asked the Historic Commission and said, this is not our purpose is Fairhaven Grove.
Sure.
And seeing how far away from the street.
I want to share a few things with you.
Yeah.
I think you've arrived at a moment when the story is still unfolding. And you happen to be here at a time when there's tremendous consensus about the next right steps for historic Fisk Chapel or Bicentennial Hall. And there at the Good of the Borough, because it wasn't anywhere else on the agenda, was my plan to talk about these things because we've received some memorandums from the Historic Preservation Commission, and we sort of have a clear path about what those next steps look like. But separate from taking care of the building, you're also talking about the history, the story, and you're right, it's very special. The governing body applied through the Voorhees Transportation Group, a planning grant to put together a historic walking tour of Fairhaven. We haven't heard back yet. We don't know if we'll get it. But the idea was that one of the stories that could be shared is through sort of like an active listening thing where you scan a QR code and up comes the pictures and you can listen to the story at different sites throughout Fairhaven. And of course, one of the stories would be about historic Fisk Chapel. And it would be great to have you involved in that. If we get the grant, yeah, and even if we don't get the grant, it's still something that should happen. And I do know we have a lot of good partners. I understand HPC's role is finite, but there is an education component, and the association's committed to telling a story too.
So my question is there a comprehensive plan that has a budget, whether you can meet the budget or not, but is such a plan carry out over the next 2 years?
So
does it exist right now?
In pieces, there's a punch list that was generated a few years ago that needs updating, which is one of the things I'm hoping we'll act on tonight, or at least, make a motion to advance the updating of that, because we have some water intrusion and some other things that need to be addressed, and that punch list could be more comprehensive. We also have what should probably be an update to a maintenance and an investment plan that would guide the borough in what to take care of and what order. Some things our DPW crew can do for the building, and other things we might have to hire a vendor or a more specialized type of contractor, but that document should probably be updated. And that would help guide HPC as well as this body for budgeting. These things are happening. That's what I want to share.
Let me just add, just to add data points, right? The original scope of work for Bicentennial Hall, which included the ADE upgrades, as well as, I'll call them other improvements, right? There's a number and a scope associated with that. Whether we implement that or not, because as you're hearing tonight, between the ADA plus, we'll call it a punch list item to get it up to a point where it could just be maintained is what the goal and intent is. And on the relationship with Fish Chapel, we just signed a long-term agreement with Fish Chapel, right, over by the police station. And we view that as a significant step to exactly achieve what they're looking for. So I'd like to loop you into those discussions, those conversations I'm planning there with him.
I would also give a larger financial picture, which was in last year's governing body. There was a plan for Bison Hall that we turned down. And in fairness, partially the reason we turned it down is because we didn't know how much the police department, how much the DPW would cost, and we saw those as the much larger cost that we were gonna have as a borough. Now that we have a better sense of where that is, we can really get to the details on other projects and determine how we want to move forward.
In addition to that, some of us also felt that those plans would have been a betrayal of the historic significance of the building itself.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why some people didn't support that.
So you're basically committing that by the time the police department is finished, the beautiful Fish Chapel.
Wouldn't that be
The
great?
facility will be.
I'm not committing, but I'm sitting here telling you again, it's the line of the night. We hear you and we also agree that it's important. And we want to restore it the best we can as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Agenda item only?
Susan.
Sorry, for Clay Street, I just wanted to say, Drew, you were my hero. I've been waiting 8 years for green cans. I brought it up 8 years ago, I brought it up 7 years ago, 6, 5, 4, whatever. And you're my hero. And I think our streets are filthy dirty, regardless of our street sweeper. And the next thing I want to hear about is bagging leaves. So, but I am so happy, you have no idea, and I'll be the first person online to buy a green can.
Thanks. Team effort, a lot of eyes.
Anyone else in the public with a agenda item? Yep. Well, Bonnie.
Bonnie, Tourist City at 115 Baton. This is a little follow-up to the green cans. Could we possibly throw a little educational thing in there about, you can choose to leave your leaves on your properties and put them in your beds and they break down and they enrich your soil. And they keep the pollinator, they're also, they keep them out of our waste cycle and they're really valuable as compost. And it's like a great little piece to have in there.
Yep.
So I was just gonna.
I think that's a good thing
That's
to
it.
include in.
That is a theme already included in the communication themes.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's good.
and Betty Ann actually posts. That.
Yeah.
That's part of her buzz stuff.
So we can,
She does.
when we do this whole re-education and the outreach and whatnot, we can make sure that alternatives to putting on the street are included. That's one of the central themes in the communication plan. I can send it to you, what was sent to you.
That's great. And just listening to Maria makes me beseech you to get this tree ordinance, back on the agenda.
It'll be in the new year. It will.
Like
In the new year.
early part of the year?
Yes. Yes. I can't commit when, but that's the goal.
It's so important, because.
I agree.
And I guess it shows how I can take a tree down on my property, it doesn't impact me, it didn't impact my neighbors, it didn't impact the street, it impacts like the feel of the whole. So it is, and when builders come in who really don't care at all, they're just making money. That really is particularly upsetting.
I'll just say this, if it was just about like the amount of the fine or the amount, then it would be done already. There was more of an existential question about where the appeals would go, to which commission, stuff like that. That's what's holding it up. In the new year, you have my commitment to at least trying to move this forward to where it needs to be. Yes, we'll get it done. Yeah, we get everything else done, we'll get it done.
Okay, and I just want to thank Steve for talking to Papa. I really, I hope we can get it back up and it's just, thanks.
Anyone else in the public with a agenda comment? No? Allison, anyone online? Is that a no?
That's a
That
no.
was a quick no. All right, approval of minutes, September 26th, 2023, regular meeting. Do I have a motion to
Motion.
approve?
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Scott.
yes.
Paul. Yes. Bob Rivera.
Yes.
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 Councilmember Harley gets dropped off at 9:10. It was 3:05 where he was, so.
Okay. October 10th, 2023, regular meeting.
Motion.
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Paul.
Yes.
Hodge.
yes.
Bob Rivera.
Yes.
Yes.
October 23rd, 2023, executive session.
Motion.
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Paul.
Yes.
Hodge.
yes.
Bob Rivera.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Moving along to council committee reports. I don't know if,
Next meeting for finance is 28
police fire.
November.
Yeah, police fire.
Police fire OEM meeting is 20 November, a week from today.
And personnel.
No, the only thing is we still have an opening for DPW.
Resumes are coming in.
Beautiful. Resumes are coming in.
Oh,
so,
great,
Yeah.
great.
Parks and Rec, who's my backup? Parks and Rec.
Me.
Parks and Rec?
Our meeting for tomorrow night was canceled. We didn't have enough people, and our next meeting is December 5th, I believe. Yes.
Planning board.
Planning board, our next meeting is Wednesday night. We have a pretty light agenda, which is nice. Our beautification committee is hard at work. And right now they're working on improving and updating our holiday decorations, which would include white lights on the poles, new wreaths, reusing some of the old wreaths, but adding new bows. They're working on some upcoming projects, revising the bench and food dedication program. And lastly, our veteran signs that were distributed the weekend before last, I think everybody really appreciated them. Our high school kids helped to distribute them. But what I would ask, if you have a sign in your yard, you have two options. You can return it and just leave it behind Borough Hall in the parking lot, or we will come around at the end of this week and collect them. And we reuse them, so we'd like to get them back.
All my code enforcement and our garbage contractor now, so that they don't disappear.
Oh,
Good.
If you're using it back up our hall.
I did play board. Our meeting's Wednesday night.
Okay, engineering DP, thank you. Thank you. Engineering DPW, followed by Borough Facilities, followed by zoning board. Councilman Barbera.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll start with zoning board. The 2022 annual report was adopted by the zoning board at the last meeting. That is in the packet, and that's one of the reports to accept. If you recall, we talked about last time, having a review of it, discussing at the governing body what the response would be, because we did the memo to the 2021, and having that conversation back and forth. So we'll follow that process we talked about. Riparian was adopted tonight. I think that's a huge success of developing a strong relationship with our zoning board. And conversations are ongoing, Mayor, regarding drainage. Likely won't have an ordinance probably until the new year, just given the coordination that we want to do. We've already coordinated with zoning board, with environmental. So we'll have some more to go there.
You'll be getting some direct feedback from environmental. They
Awesome.
discussed it at length.
Awesome. I'll switch to facilities and then end with engineering DPW. So from the facilities, let's start on the PD Community Center. If you're not signed up for the buzz, please do. We keep sending pictures out. The foundation pouring is happening as we speak. The community center, Mayor, is gonna be demolished. Week of 27 November is as of now. So dates can slide to the right. So I'm gonna always asterisk dates. Site clearing continues. Gonna coordinate with rec to remove the temporary bathroom. No update on appropriation. It's really coming along. So as these facility milestones keep working, we're working very closely with communications committee. And we're working on the memorial for First Chapel. On DPW, auction, oh, thank you, yes. We're also doing a second auction. So there's a tremendous amount of office supplies, office furniture, just random things that it's advantageous to have somebody else take away and make a couple bucks. Remember the last auction we made around 41 grand. I do not expect that volume of money, but nonetheless, it's gonna be another auction, and that's on the agenda tonight as well. DPW, we got the bids in, came in 1.5 million less than the cost estimate. Our updated cost avoidance now is over $12 million. So if you recall, the last cost avoidance number was 9.7. We've avoided taxpayer dollars of 12 million plus. That is the equivalent of a new PD, new community center, and a renovated DPW, just to put it in context. We're gonna look to award DPW on 27 November. We have some things we need to work through to include determining if we're gonna award the alternate. We're doing some deep analysis on that. We've also identified some potential software and equipment that we can add to our camera that can do license plate reading in real time. We have some diligence to do on pricing and whatnot. But it would be able to identify license plates in real time, 24/7, and provide real-time notifications to the police who are monitoring. So think about like illegal dumping at the recycling dump. And in the moment, the cop on duty being able to know that someone's doing that, they go right there and they catch them in the act. It's unbelievable how fast, and I just learned about this with the technology. So that covers facilities, and I'll end with engineering DPW, McCarter Pond. You'll see that the resolution is on tonight to do some initial, I'll call it work at McCarter Pond. Fairhaven street lighting, you'll notice that the authorization to bid is on the agenda tonight. With Rich getting involved, Rich helped us avoid $18,000 in design costs to put the bid package together. And also based on his estimate, we should avoid another $150,000 in project costs by going this route as opposed to the original route. So it's $168,000 that we avoided with this help. Hanson Cooney, markouts coming out there. Then we need to discuss paving, and there's a couple other components with Hanson Cooney, just to make sure that things get buttoned up there. I'm gonna skip over stormwater management. Fairhaven Road project, we will be doing more of an invitation on Fairhaven Road as we start the design. It's no longer Fairhaven Road Phase 1, Phase 2, just we're gonna squash that. It's now Fairhaven Road upgrade. We have $1 million in grant money from the DOT. Think sidewalks, think curbing, think paving, stormwater management upgrade, crosswalks, evaluating speed limits. There's gonna be a lot in that, and there will be community engagement with that. Micro projects should be starting soon. We got crushed with 7 weeks of rain, so that pushed everything to the right slightly. There's 5 additional homes that require some white glove, Mayor, that we weren't able to get in touch with the homeowner on some of the work. But besides that, there's one zoning board meeting left in December. Engineer DPW scheduled for Thanksgiving, but I don't think we'll make it. But that's everything.
2 questions real quick. Hydro Rake and Hans Cooney, will they be done before winter season, or are they pushing spring?
You said McCarter? McCarter should be done before the end of the year. I believe they're on the docket. As far as Hanson Cooney, that's what we have to coordinate. Because if the markouts happen 15 November, which is the tentative date, tentative, the tree is not coming down. That is confirmed. But if the markouts happen 15 November, then Verizon goes in, they have to remove 2 poles. They'll give it a clean bill of health, then we have to engage the contractor. Exactly, so we're gonna do everything we can to come up against the frost window. But if everybody saw this morning, this was, I think, the first frost this morning.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Councilwoman Cole, Borough Communications, Community Outreach.
Thank you, Mayor. Outreach and Communications met last week. It's a bit of a blur, right? So we had a good discussion on the heels of our last council meeting, so it might have been 2 meetings ago. And we unpacked the meeting, and I credit Councilwoman Hoey for raising that whole discussion around transparency and making sure that we're doing the best we can do to serve our residents and to also communicate clearly. And in that discussion, and Allison, you and I were both there now that Kristen's in here, and I know Teresa, you were out sick, but in that discussion, we talked about when a matter is inexact. And the public is aware that perhaps it's inexact, but they don't actually know what's being discussed. And then when it hits the agenda as a consent item, it can kind of catch people off guard. And the remedy and recommendation from the Outreach and Communications Committee is that when an item's been in exec, that it be moved when it first comes to the agenda to workshop. That's an opportunity for residents to hear directly from their elected officials. Whether that's long or short, you know, that would be a function of the issue and the mayor running the meeting, but the recommendation is to go from exec to workshop rather than exec to consent agenda. We touched on brush and leaf, but just know that I really think it's a big lift. I think it's going to have a lot to do with the success or failure of this initiative. I want it to be successful. So our next meeting is coming up, and we're gonna spend some time on this and talk about what it needs to look like and how we get from where we are now to a very easy, friendly read and how people integrate it in their home life. That's the Environmental Commission. I'm not sure, Tracy, are we meeting this Thursday? Because technically it would be next week. We bumped it to the week before. That's this Thursday. So I think so. Can I circle back to you? But we will probably meet this week.
If you want me there, just let me know.
Thank you so much. The Environmental Commission is preparing its annual report. They heard from a number of people as they're compiling their sort of look ahead for 2024. As part of that, also the natural area with representatives from the natural area, Third Street Trail, both are hosting volunteer days on November 18th and 19th. The natural area is hosting volunteer days from 9 to 1. You'll need to come with work gloves and simple equipment, and volunteers will be there to help guide you as you participate. And you'll need to fill out your volunteer waiver form. Same for Third Street Trail, December 3rd from 10 to 2. If you're interested in coming out, bring your gloves. And there'll be group leaders there to facilitate the waiver, signing them out, volunteer waiver, and you'll get guidance on how to help participate. It's great community service hours, and some people think it's very therapeutic. The Green Team is hosting a sports swap on December 9th. They're still looking for a place for the drop off. I know that discussions have come up about using the drop off at the library. I think they're going to look at outside of Millwood. Sports equipment can kind of be big and clunky. I'm not sure it's suitable to outside of the library. So stay tuned. I'm sure that they'll make sure we all know where to put our sports equipment prior to December 9th. Because I think it's the beginning of basketball season. No, I think it is like
For rec basketball
at Millwood.
Well, travel basketball's already started. Attorney Sobel's on the board, so he's a better person to ask them.
Is December 9th the beginning of basketball season for Millwood?
Millwood School,
Yeah.
the school team, I do not know.
All right.
They just started tryouts today.
They start tryouts.
They just started tryouts today.
Oh,
The girls.
So maybe it's the first home game or something. Well, anyhow, they're trying to coincide with an activity that the community be aware of sports spot because they're there for sport. The Shade Tree Commission, as you guys know, they got the grant award for the tree inventory. As of today, with Christie's help, they've processed 115 tree removal applications. You can probably understand that there's more than one tree for most tree removal applications. Many of those trees are diseased or dying, but anyway, just so we have a way to gauge, I'm keeping those numbers on the radar. The blight that we touched on earlier is still with us and maybe for some time. That's what I'm told. There's absolutely zero guidance other than prune for safety. I'm sorry, I don't have more information. None of the experts do. The grants committee is meeting on, I think it's next week. And we're going to take a close look at the Mount County Open Space. They've just opened their 2024 funding round. Take a good look at that. It's up from 250,000 to 500 grand. Community engagement is a required component of the plan. There's a planning grant, and anyway, we'll break it down. We'll provide a summary for the governing body, hopefully by the December meeting. The business district is getting ready for their Shop Small Saturday. Come on out. It's a beautiful, fun event, and it's a great time to come and just start your own Christmas shopping and support our local businesses. Sport Couture at 803 River Road was just added to or just joined the Fair Business Association, so welcome. And I'd like to cover some historic preservation stuff. If that's suitable here, I can wait till we go to the borough. It's appropriate.
Okay, go for it.
The Historic Preservation Commission sent us 2 memos, one having to do with what Matt Cronin presented this evening. And so that business is done. The second memo had to do with, the maintenance and improvement plan prepared by historic architect Mark Alexander Pavlik. This report was, I touched on this earlier, it's a guiding document and it gives us sort of like step by step. Here's how you take care of a historic property that's on both the state and national historic register. So they sometimes need a little bit more TLC, we'll call it. And so this document, which is now 14 years old, 13, is in need of updating. Now, Mr. Pavlov is phenomenal, and I would love to be able to get him, but the recommendation is to hire him to update this document. It will serve as a basis for consensus, whether we're fundraising or we're making decisions about investment as a governing body for our budget purposes, or even for this sort of preservation commission that may from time to time take an interest in the outside of the building and something that they may see. So it serves all 3 of our partnerships in the different hats that we wear. It does not cost a lot of money either. I think that his retainer was $2,500. So I would like to suggest that we follow the guidance of the Historic Preservation Commission and make sure that there's a line item in the budget next year to retain the professional services necessary to update this document.
What's the document again?
It's the Fisk Chapel Preservation Project Maintenance and Repair Action Plan, is the title. And it is just that, literally list of actions, and it identifies what actions we can take care of in-house with DPW and what actions we have to, hire a specialist. This may actually be an RFP if Mr. Pavlov is potentially retired or doesn't have anyone in his firm to pick up his work. So Teresa, what would you advise at this point? Do we have enough to issue an RFP?
You're on mute, Teresa.
You'd want to issue an RFQ because you'd want money involved in it, and how much they want to charge for it. Excuse me. And I think depending on the scope of work, I thought that he was retired, Tracy, and he wasn't doing this type of stuff anymore. Was my understanding?
That's what I thought too. Yes, I think so. I'm hoping there's somebody at his firm, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'd probably have to do a little more due diligence before we figured out the best way to approach this. The important thing is that we have to budget for it.
Yes, exactly. So I think we're looking at 2 remaining action items, which is updating this document through the RFQ process that would ultimately come to this body as a proposal for a scope of work to update this plan. And then an update to the punch list to include a bunch of stuff. To take care of the water intrusion,
it would seem to me that you'd want to coordinate those 2. If you're going to pay a professional, you're talking about a scope of work that needs to be done. You really want that professional to identify the entire scope of work as part of the
ideal.
And I'd have to double check the ordinance that we passed back in last year, or 2 years ago. But I'm fairly sure there was some soft costs in there, and there might be enough in the soft cost of that ordinance to cover any planning piece of it.
There is some soft costs. I don't remember the number, but I remember the conversation we had.
Makes sense to do it now.
Yeah.
Bring it up to a certain level, and then you just maintain it going forward.
I mean, is everyone on the same page here? I'd like to make sure we get the consensus.
I'd like to know how much it's gonna cost.
I think Teresa's recommending an RFQ so we can get a handle on that.
And can we reach out to the previous guy to see if he retired 1 and 2, if he has any recommendations?
Absolutely.
Outside of it.
Absolutely. I can make those calls, Teresa.
That's fine, Tracy.
Okay. So look for a follow-up email. Great. But conceptually, I mean, this taking care of these housekeeping items and bring the building up to really where it deserves to be. I just want to make sure we're all in agreement on those things conceptually.
Right.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Mayor,
You good?
All good.
Good.
Yeah.
Mayor, just two other quick anecdotes. Spoke with Little Silver Town Council. They're going to continue making improvements to the RBR parking lot. The representative we've been building relationship is in charge of all interlocal service agreements. So if there's any interlocals you think that might be advantageous or collaborating with town, Little Silver, just let me know and I'll kick it off to somebody. And then just want to hand these out, just smile on everybody's face, and the public will be happy to see these. I got to give kudos to DJ Breckenridge and Allison. They provided Borough Hall tours about a week and a half ago, and the students wrote letters and
No way.
like just crushed it though. Like I kind of inserted myself a little bit. But between talking about finance and planning board, the questions these kids had. Hey, if this is zoned this way, am I allowed to build X? We have a new mascot. His name is Scotty. We
How
got
did Scotty get here? Because
Scotty
that was a question that was asked, that was a question that was asked to me at the school.
I'll let
Scotty-
Allison.
It goes back to when Mike Halfaker was the mayor and there was hunting on the river, duck hunting. And somebody just brought it and
All right,
said.
forget I asked the question.
Yeah, but he's our mascot now, but long story short, like DJ, Allison, they did a phenomenal job. It was a marathon. It was 6 hours of tours. Every single third grader from Sickles came, and we want to add to it. We started talking about adding Fish Chapel history to it and kind of having other things. So
Beautiful.
it was great. So please take a read of these before you leave, because some of the comments are just, it's why you move this down.
They're short and scary.
So thanks, Mayor, for indulging me for a minute.
All right, we're moving along to the consent agenda. We're speaking about resolutions 2023-270 through 281.
We're pulling 279.
Pulling 279. Okay, so we're 270 through 278 and then 280 through 281.
And it skips from 270, 274, Mayor.
Right, 270 was pulled from the last meeting and
Oh.
so we're keeping up 274 for this.
Before we vote, does anyone want to separate anything?
My only suggestion is perhaps we spend a moment on the hydro raking to. I mean, that's one of the ones that's been in exec for a while. It's now on the consent agenda, and I know people care about this issue. We could just.
Well, we
spend a
can't
second on it.
talk about the last hydro rate project, but we can
No.
talk about the go forward on this one. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
T, you want me to, I'll give a quick update. So notwithstanding the previous project, we kind of went back to the drawing board and identified what our options were to start cleaning up McCarter Pond. It included going back out to bid completely. It included identifying contractors in this space that have done maintenance in these types of scenarios in surrounding towns. And given the length of time that this has taken and the need to start in the hydro raking now and not in the spring and definitely before the DEP prohibition begins, because you can't do hydro raking during spawning of fish eggs. What's on the agenda tonight for approval is one reputable company to come in. They're going to charge us per day to clean up the pond. And when we hit a threshold, we're going to stop. What we also talked about was that there's a tremendous amount of knowledge and data points required about McCarter. There's a lot of historical changes that have taken place. Sorry, I didn't mean to go back and forth. There's a lot of historical changes that have taken place. I know that, and I'm bad with like geographical directions, but if I'm standing on a Fairhaven Road looking at it, I'm gonna say like the northeast corner, right, and all the vegetation that has grown there. There's anecdotes of how it's been overflowing, how that drainage where it flows out is an issue, how high it's been. I know there's a drainage pipe across the street, and where it used to kind of stay. So going with this option will do a few different things. One, allow us to start cleaning up the pond because it needs to be cleaned up. There's just no question about it. Two, develop more knowledge about the condition of the pond and the type of effort that would have the greatest impact, both from a time perspective, but also financial. And as we go on this journey, right, continue to talk with the residents surrounding that area. I learned not too long ago that there's an area that one resident takes care of and puts mulch down where their bench is. So all this different information kind of coming to this inflection point doing this year, and then be positioned with the 2024 budget to continue. What we've learned is that there is a general maintenance to these types of water features, this pond, and obviously with what it resembles in the town is really important. So that's the background of where we are tonight. And the goal is that we approve the resolution tonight and the contractor starts soonest. I don't have a date, but soonest to be done before the end of the year.
We didn't go back out to previous stuff for those.
We just got told, yes.
Yeah, so we didn't have to.
Any questions? Is that helpful background context? They're gonna be hydro raking, which is removing the organic debris in there. It could be leaves, it could be.
It's like a claw.
And there's
All
a.
the moving
dump-
systems
dumpster
out.
that Put it in and take it away, dump.
Yeah.
Ice skates.
Yeah.
They're gonna pull stuff.
Where's it all gonna go?
Dump.
To a facility.
Yeah,
out of
facility that takes this, they dry it out, they do this whole, they have a very detailed process of taking it out, let it dry, let the water drain back into the pond, so you don't lose a lot of water. Then it goes into the container, and then you take the container to the dump, they gotta weigh it, and they have a whole separate way of disposing of this type of, I think it's actually a class material, don't quote me on
Are
exactly.
you
what, but-
offering those wide streets on Spruce?
So if anybody sees anybody walking in the pond, it's this activity.
Alright, we don't wanna separate anything?
No,
No.
Any other questions on anything?
no.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve with the exceptions that we called out.
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Paul,
Yes.
Cox,
yes.
Barbera.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Thank you. Department reports, 2022 annual report, zoning board of adjustment, October 23rd reports. Do I have a motion to accept the reports as submitted?
A motion with a thank you, as always, seriously, these are
Second.
very important.
All in favor?
May
You
I-
have something you want to?
Just one
Yep.
thing, as Councilman Rivera mentioned, discussion around the zoning board annual report is warranted. I think it should be a regular part of our business
Yep.
and how we metabolize these annual reports, so.
And we'll bring a draft
Right.
memo back to the governing body for review prior to communicating with the zoning board.
Sounds good.
So motion to approve.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And I just want to point out, I took a brief look at that police department report for this month. I think I saw the police responded to over 780 calls or something in a month. I just want to point out, I'm not sure everyone realizes, you know, how often they have interactions. And listen, the interactions are all different, but, you know, kudos to you and the department for all the work you guys do.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, Merrick, 70 divided by 30 days, that's 26 calls a day.
All right, go to the borough, please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name, address for the record. Mr. Hempstead, come on up.
Chief, you got my back.
You
Stop saying. What's that? Thank you. Just real quick, what is the white glove service?
White glove, it's a terminology we throw around where there's a certain situation or scenario where direct engagement between a council member and that resident is required. So think about if I was gonna rip up your driveway, because I need to do.
Oh, okay.
I'm not just gonna
It's not like there's home disrepair.
Oh, no. It's just where it's gonna be extremely disruptive. It's really a technology term.
Yeah. I was hoping it was the other. I
No,
was like, wow, we have that service here?
not this year, maybe.
At the house I want to recommend. I'm here to appeal to the council. What's that? Oh, Chris Hempstead, 53 Willow Street, Barrington, New Jersey. I'm here to appeal to the council, with respect to the terminology that we use about some of our celebrations in town. In particular, we had, a very celebrated and welcome, menorah lighting, which is invited to all in town, not just, you know, people of Jewish faith, but everyone is invited. It's on the website. It's on the Focus on Fairhaven. We also have a holiday stroll with Santa. And what I've asked, and I asked it at another meeting, and I've later found out that this was actually brought before the rec committee and possibly the council 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. That we add the Christmas tree lighting to our holiday celebration. Similar to how we have the Hanukkah lighting, right, the menorah lighting. Now, there's a reason why we have certain things. If you consider a particular object secular, okay, as opposed to the religious item, your interpretation would lead to, okay, it's a secular item, it's not religious, it's okay to say it. You can't offend anyone because it's secular. If it's religious, you open the town up to what is considered the establishment clause, then a lemon rule, and then what has later become reindeer tests or whatever it's called. If you look locally across the United States of America, this specific issue has come up thousands of times. And if you look this year, you'll find a case in Massachusetts. You'll find a case in Chicago. And if you look last year, you'll find another. And if you go back to 1974, and even I think 1969, you'll find history of this specific matter. Can you have a menorah and a creche in a public place? Now, some courts have said, no, you can't have a menorah and a creche. You can have a menorah, you can't have a creche. You can't have either, you can have both. The important thing to remember is there's an interpretation. It's not coming to the council asking you to establish an ordinance, because you don't need to. And I think our attorney would also, by the way, I've had the pleasure of speaking with the mayor independently and informally about these matters. And I've had the pleasure of speaking with the borough attorney and some other members of the council, and it's just to sort of gauge an awareness of what's going on. So my ask and request of the council, in the interest of fairness, is to let's just be fair about it. Let's have our menorah lighting on that, what is December 10th or whatever it is, and let's have our holiday stroll with Santa and Christmas tree lighting on that evening, and that's it. Let's not bury it. The alternative would be, let's rename everything and let's have a candle lighting and a tree lighting, right? And that would be a fair and balanced approach to this whole thing. And I think that would keep Fairhaven, in the context of everything, in line with the way the rest of the country has seen it. Now, New York City has tackled this. You know how they do it? They have a giant menorah and have a giant Christmas tree. This is New York City, probably the most liberal city in the entire world. And they have both. Okay, what else? Josh?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
So I'm asking for your consideration. It's not an ordinance I'm asking for. I'm asking for.
Thank you for your comments.
There is a tree, there is I mean, I think the rec department does organize a tree lighting event.
They won't call it a Christmas tree.
You want it named a Christmas tree?
Yes, or rename the menorah lighting for candle lighting, one or the other.
Oh.
Why would you have one religious object and not another? Why would you have one secular object and not another? That's all I'm asking.
So you're saying a menorah is a religious?
Absolutely.
So, Chris, as we spoke earlier, I'm gonna do my research. I told you I didn't have the opportunity this weekend. And then I'll advise the council and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'm not asking the council to do anything that puts you at risk. Just have the holiday stroll with Santa and Christmas tree lighting. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you for
You
your
don't have
comments.
to do it in print, just put it on the website, just like you do everything else.
Thank
And
you for your
it's a
comments.
reasonable ask. Does anyone else on council have any questions about this, or?
The 3 minutes have expired, sir.
Mayor, okay. A lot of people's minutes have expired, all right? And I've been fair about this, okay? This is a really important matter for the town.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Carolyn Ferguson, 7 Columbia Court. I've been the FHBA organizer for the holiday stroll for the last 10 years. I just want to provide a little context. In 2020, the pandemic year, there was no holiday event. In 2021, we had our Santa in the Park event, but there was no tree lighting because we were trying to avoid congestion in the park. Last year, there was a tree lighting as part of the big event. But I just want to stress that the town doesn't really have a big commitment at this point to a tree lighting event. Yeah, so the name of the event is the Holiday Stroll and Santa in the Park. Like I said, that might change at some point, maybe the town will have a bigger commitment to a tree lighting event. But in recent years, it hasn't really been a focus of anything. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Anyone else in the public? No? Allison?
I have Susan. Oh, yeah, Susan.
Can I speak? Am I on? Oh, okay. I couldn't tell if I was on or not. I just wanted to say that I think that, can you hear me? Oh, Susan Sorensen, 34 Clare Street. Is that it? Can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to say that the Fairhaven Business Association do an amazing job at putting together this holiday stroll and tree lighting and Santa in the park. The tree lighting piece is the borough's portion of it, and that is such an insignificant portion of the entire event. I mean, the Fairhaven Business Association has put together having horse-drawn carriages. I mean, they make it as such a phenomenal community event. And obviously it is Christmas. It's Christmas driven, but because you have a tree and you have Santa and all that, but it really encompasses the whole community. I don't think it matters whether the tree is deemed a Christmas tree or just a tree lighting or not. I think the way we have it today is fine and is great. So that's just my, and plus the fact that our tree is so pathetically sad that, and I know next year there's a whole thing that we have put into place to do something to replace that tree for next year. That, but regardless of the tree itself, the event the tree is so insignificant to that phenomenal event that the Fairhaven Business Association, along with DJ and the rec department, put on, that I don't think there should be any controversy over it. I think it's phenomenal. So I applaud everyone that, and Carolyn and Lauren and everybody in DJ that put that day on.
Nothing to disagree. There's no controversy, but if you call it a Christmas tree, does that somehow diminish your event?
I don't think it's necessary.
Is there anyone else?
But it's okay to call it it's okay to call it a
Sir, you're out of order.
Christmas tree.
You're out of order, sir.
You're out.
Yeah, no, someone just dropped out.
I'm good.
We're good.
All right. With that being said, we're going to move towards executive session. The time is 10:37. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
All right. You didn't even attempt to hide it. Do I have a motion? Adjourn.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No. Right there.
And, you know,
Good night, Fairhaven.